Joyce back on. Blocked! Indiana blocks the punt and falls on it for a touchdown. Isaiah Jones on the recovery.
This is 365 Sports.
Essential to come away with points in this drive.
Tony in the backfield there.
He's got it on the pitch. Tony breaks free. Malachi Tony spinning, scoring.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Got to get to the 8. He's going to take off and run. Mendoza weaves his way first and go diving toward the end zone. Touchdown!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Beck steps up, delivers downfield, intercepted! Jamari Sharp makes the pick that will clinch Indiana's first national championship.
Remember when you had a guy, someone who could fix anything? They're still out there at Batteries Plus. With their quick solutions and expert advice on batteries, key fobs, and phone repair, Batteries Plus will have you in and out and on your way in no time. Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Finally, how are you going to celebrate, Coach?
I'm going to have beer.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Well, how about Indiana? My goodness. A story that last year was fun and at times like, wow, and then they lost to Notre Dame. And then this year they opened up, they were even better. You could tell with huge wins against eventually Oregon, Ohio State, others. The dramatic win against Penn State. They run through the playoffs. They were pushed last night in a great game against Miami, and yet they win in the end to cap off a 16-0 national championship team and season. That, boy, if you could have put some money on this back in the summer or even a year ago, you would be rich as hell. And what a great run from Curt Signetti and his football team.
Both of them were 100-1 at the beginning of the season to win the national title. So you could have won some money had you gotten it right either way. But it's just a fantastic story for Curt Signetti in Indiana, the ultimate out-of-nowhere program in college athletics. And there were so many things that happened during the game last night. Fernando Mendoza's, this is why I won the Heisman moment, to score the 4th down touchdown. Later in the game, when they could have put it away by getting a first down and scoring a touchdown, a false start, something that Curt Signetti wishes there was a vaccine for. And I just felt it coming then that this coach, who has made it his mission in life to make sure his team doesn't commit stupid little penalties, loses the national championship because of a false start, or in part because of a false start. But then they do what great teams do, faced with adversity, faced with big plays by Miami down the stretch, made a big play to end it. And it was a fantastic game, an instant classic, and I enjoyed every second of it.
I did too. Craig, you said yesterday you just hope we can go home without, you may want one team or the other and just have a good football game to watch, and I hope you got your wish.
Yeah, I mean, I think undoubtedly got my wish. That was an excellent football game. It was highly competitive, highly dramatic, and high stakes, and you could feel the stakes through the TV screen, much less, I'm sure, in person amongst the tens of thousands of people that were there, and raucous. And it was a Miami crowd as far as where you were, but it was a pro-Indiana crowd inside that stadium, that's for damn sure. The Hoosiers stepped up and represented, and so did the Canes, man. I don't think there's any hanging of the heads coming out of last night other than Miami probably feeling like they should have won that football game, that if a couple of things go differently, they win that football game. And there were times, even when they were down, where it felt like they're about to go win this football game, and you get the blocked kick that flips things on its head just when it looks like Indiana's maybe in a little bit of trouble. They come up with a huge play like that, or a 4th down play where it could go either way. Instead of a big stop and probably swinging all the momentum, it's Mendoza's signature moment of the entire season. It was just an excellent back and forth. I thought both teams coming into this game were well representing the college football playoff and the sport as a whole, as far as having earned their way there. No doubts about whether they belonged or whether they didn't. And so we just got to see two teams tee off and put together one hell of a finale for this great sport that we all love. And I enjoyed every minute of it. At least early on, it looked like, is Indiana going to beat their ass too? Like, are they going to blow them out? And like, is that what we're really doing here? But obviously that was not the case. And Miami made things more than interesting. But yeah, it was everything that I hoped for, as far as being glued to the TV for 3 hours and it coming down to the wire and coming down to high drama and huge plays by the biggest stars in the game, and some of the biggest coaching decisions that you could ever imagine as well. I mean, Curt Signetti going for it on that 4th down, for example, is one of the ballsiest hit or miss decisions in college football history. And luckily for him, it was a hit and it helped them raise the national championship trophy. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack from it. The summation is that was a very fun and fitting end to what was a very fun and entertaining football season.
Well, you mentioned Mendoza. Paul, you did too. Here is the shot on 4th down. He's not known for being a mobile quarterback, but he's a pretty good athlete. But these are two different angles of the touchdown. Credit to, again, Kim Kleiman-Netzel, and also with Carmen Mendoza, with Getty. That's the one from the backside, and then there's the one, and I kept when he twisted to try to put the ball over the goal line, I thought he would get hit, and the ball might come loose. It didn't. What a run from a guy that's not known to be a dual threat, but can run when he needs to at a huge moment in the game.
He's tough. He really is. We've seen it throughout the playoff. He's taking some hard hits. He got targeted early in the game. They didn't call it, but just hit right in the chin and was bleeding from the mouth and didn't even affect him. So, yeah, I'm more impressed with Fernando Mendoza every snap he takes, and that was a gritty, gutty performance last night. That touchdown was super exciting, and the thing about it is it had this feel of, oh, well, that's it. And then Miami didn't go away.
No, they didn't.
They were really, really not dissuaded by anything at all. They locked back in. And, of course, when you have players like they do, especially when you have Malachi Tony, who the college football world, particularly the ACC, has to deal with for 2 more excruciatingly long seasons, you are going to be confident to make plays.
Yeah, he get the ball in his hands, and they did. And when they did, it usually ended up being a pretty good result. So there we are with Mendoza. Now look at this number. Fernando Mendoza on 4th down. This from the defensive coordinator, from Brandon Marcello, when they knew what the play was going to be. And yet the defensive coordinator said they just couldn't get locked in right. We knew what the play was. It wasn't a secret. The issue, the trouble, getting a check-in call to players, linebacker Wesley Basante, and also, and then the 3 technique. But at the end of it, they didn't get the call in time. It was still perfectly blocked by Indiana. Signetti said they felt like they had the right look. Everybody did what they were supposed to do, and he found a way. I just get the 1st down, much less score. But even Miami, well, we knew it was coming, but they couldn't get it locked in on defense soon enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to probably be something that's burned in their brains. The defenders on the field, seeing that lining up, and now with the benefit of hindsight, what could I have done differently, or how could that have gone differently? And I'm sure the Miami coaches are reeling over that a little bit. And yeah, you second guess probably a lot of things, or you wish things had gone differently, especially in a close game like that. And for Indiana, I mean, it was just such a ballsy call. I mean, they've been known to go for it on 4th downs, and I guess the basic gist of it is like, why the hell not? Like, in this situation, this is the right choice to make. As much of a gamble as it is, you want to sit there and try to build on a lead, and you could feel the momentum heading Miami's way as well. And so I think, obviously it was something that could have been a huge blow up in your face type of moment, and maybe change that game into all Miami momentum, and the Canes run away with it after that point if they get a big stop. But it was a great play call, great blocking by Indiana offensively, and great decision-making by Mendoza, just how he found his way into the end zone, being able to stay on his feet. And, yeah, he took a bunch of hits last night. I mean, Miami very clearly was coming after him early, and Signetti bitching about it at halftime about how they had what should have been a couple personal foul calls, and maybe he's right, but yeah, they busted his lip open, and he just kept playing, and he was excellent. The game itself was excellent, and that play call was a Hall of Fame level stuff. Now, obviously, it goes the other way, and we're talking about something much different, but it went Indiana's way like so many things have this year, and it was just you could kind of feel it, and then they call the timeout, and you're like, oh, hell, they're actually going to do this thing, and I was just sitting there on pins and needles, man, just no dog in the fight, just completely entrenched in this moment, and knowing that this play is probably going to dictate how this game goes, because if they don't get this, Miami's going to win this football game, and if they get this, I feel like Indiana's going to win this football game. And as you said a moment ago, Indiana not only converts but scores, and then you feel like it's pretty much over, or maybe close to being over, and Miami strikes right back, and you're like, nope, we got a bit of a ways to play here. So it was not long lasting as far as the euphoria from it, but it was one of the all-time great plays in college football history, even though it didn't necessarily decide the game there at the end. So yeah, brilliant stuff by Mendoza and the Indiana coaches, and just a brutal outcome for Miami, who probably did feel like, yeah, we've coached this up. We should have been, could have been, would have been prepared for it, but in the heat of battle, just one thing's a little bit too late or doesn't quite sink in, and it can be the difference in being a national champion or not. And that's not the play that won or lost the game, but damn, it was a major play in that game. And like I said, I think Miami's probably going to be seeing that in their dreams for a while, and their coaches are going to be drilling that home this spring of like, all right, in this situation, going over that as many times as possible. If they ever get into a situation like that again, they'll be ready for it. But man, what a moment in that game that was. I mean, that was national championship basically on the line. It wasn't Vince Young because it wasn't to win the game, but it felt that way. I mean, it felt like the game was hinging on that one play, and what a play it turned out to be. Because if he converts and gets a first down, it's massive. But for him to pinball and get into the end zone and just have that punctuation at the end of it, that exclamation point, it just was super special stuff.
Here, super special stuff. Look at what Fernando Mendoza accomplished for Indiana. Won the Heisman, 40 touchdown passes, never lost a game, did not lose a fumble, won the national title. No other quarterback, and how they have this stuff is beyond me, but they do, in NFL, FBS, or FCS history, has ever done all of that in 1 year. Never had a strip sack like Josh Allen the other day was reckless. Never fumbled the ball. In fact, Indiana had an insane stretch where they went like 1,400 plays or so without a fumble.
They had a fumble in their first game and then didn't fumble again for the rest of the year.
Crazy.
That's I mean, sometimes like the weather's, it's not cold.
Yeah.
It's not a little damp. I mean, that game they played against Oregon wasn't the sunniest day outside. Same with Penn State. You don't have a day where the ball's a little slick. It's the little things. And the biggest part I saw from Curt Signetti last night is he has the perfect blend of new school innovation, but old school in some things we've seen that, drive me nuts, where coaches don't take special teams into account, or they don't put all their best athletes on special teams. Well, Curt Signetti does that. It's Beamer ball, where if you are on this team, you are going to be a special teamer. If you're a big-time athlete, not a big time, everybody's going to be ready, and we're going to put our best guys out there. And that's why they blocked 8 or 9 points this year. That's why they blocked a punt last night. And that's why, because you practice so efficiently and you stress the little things, Miami's personal protector, their starting tight end, last night made a little Olay block one time in his life. He's probably never done that. But last night he did, because he didn't think that they were going to rush the punt that hard. And Kamara blocked a punt, and it changed the game. And so Curt Signetti knows the little things will get you beat, but they're also the things that will win the game.
Yeah,
I will agree with you for the most part. I don't think that was the Olay block. That was the punter taking his sweet-ass time as much as anything else. I mean, he was just really going through the entire motion and just kind of like I don't think Indiana was trying to block that kick.
No, they weren't.
They weren't trying to block that kick.
No.
And it's just like you look up and you're like, well, I'm here, so I guess I might as well block this thing. And it turns into this absolutely massive play that helps you win a national championship game. But, I mean, yeah, special teams are important. I think we've seen enough examples now of, you can win off of just pure talent sometimes, but it's the teams that are the overall teams that are winning in college football now, and special teams is a difference maker. And so they took advantage of the opportunity last night. I mean, you could have not blocked it. You could have whiffed. You got a pinky finger on it, and it doesn't change the trajectory. You could have not fallen on it. You could have had 1,000 things happen. But, they made the play when it was there to make plays, and that was the story of Indiana all year. When they needed somebody to step up, somebody always stepped up for them in a key moment, whether it's a touchdown against Penn State or Oregon or it's just a big catch. When you need a big catch, there's always a guy to step up and make a play for them. And so, that was an absolutely huge play. I haven't seen the overall breakdown, but the sense I did get was Miami's punter and their blocker can share equal blame there. But I think he ultimately was on the punter more so.
He did take a long time, but like I said,
he also ran towards.
And he ran towards.
I point out the personal protector because I doubt he's ever really done that before. I think he just, okay. And then he didn't have awareness of what was going on behind him. But again, that's on the punter because he's the one who knows what he's doing. But that little thing, it just, you have to take that extra effort.
And the missed field goal.
In case the guy behind you who does one thing does that thing a little slower, just make sure that you take care of those things. That's something that Indiana just did all year.
So the game then still came down where Miami has the ball down by 6, and you wondered, man, they're going to gut Indiana here, aren't they? They have Tony. They have Marion. He hadn't done much. And, it comes down to Carson Beck throwing the pick. And look at this number. God, I hate this stat for Carson Beck. His 6 losses in college, 4 of them, the final offensive play was a Beck interception with a chance to win the game. Now, he still had a marvelous year, had a really good career, won a couple of national titles, played for another one. And that was just a bad throw. Bad read, bad throw. His receiver even said after the game, I didn't even know he was throwing me the ball. He didn't look up until it was too late, and it was intercepted in ball game.
By the way, they also, just in the most dramatic fashion ever, because they got a penalty for removing the helmet, had the Fernando Mendoza couldn't just take a knee. He had to take the risk of jumping into a desperate and angry Miami defensive line. So there was even a little bit of drama. Amanda turned to me and said, I don't think I've ever seen this at the end of the game where it's this close. I said, that adds to the drama. I'm sure he's not going to drop it because he's going to hold that thing like it's a newborn baby. But there is no way that Miami isn't going to try to do everything in their power to hit him as hard as he's ever been hit in a 3-foot radius.
Yeah, I mean, they had a slight sliver, although the writing was pretty much on the wall, but it was a tough predicament to be in, and you never know just what can happen still with time left on the clock. But, that was a terrible decision by Carson Beck, another guy whose career ends on an interception. And that's not the way he drew it up, I'm sure. He was anticipating raising that trophy like Mendoza and company did last night and being the MVP of the game or something there along those lines. So to be so close and to have the ball in your hands, an opportunity to go win it, and probably feeling like you are going to do exactly that, and then to have it to end on just a really ugly turnover like that was brutal. It's a brutal way for the season to end for the Canes, and a brutal way for not only Carson Beck but a lot of other guys' careers to end. So I know the receiver was like really emotional after the game from what I read. Was it Marion he was going to in that situation? Yeah, Keelan Marion, the former BYU Cougar. So I think it was a clip from Marion or a quote from Marion where he was taking the blame on his own shoulders, and it's like, that wasn't on you, pal. Like you said, he didn't even see the ball, and so he was upset as anybody would be. But just great job by Indiana to seal the deal and make that play, not drop the interception. I mean, to reel it in and then to have that sort of exclamation point was just an awesome moment for the Hoosiers football program. And then, to have to sit there and still get it out of the end zone just to make sure made you have to wait a little bit longer to pop the champagne bottle. But the moment they picked that off, that felt like lights out, and it was. So
did you see
incredible play? Did
you see the connection to the Indiana defensive back who intercepted that pass was the nephew of the player who played for, was it who was it that had the pass interference call when Miami lost the last time they were in a championship game? There was a connection there. I guess Miami, Ohio State was the nephew of that player who was involved in pass interference. So, about what Indiana's done. Different age in college football. Absolutely different age in college football. From Chris Hummer, who will join us in about 25 minutes from CBS. Indiana has only 7 four-star high school recruits on the roster, and they just won a national title. It's improbable for what has recently been college football's losingest program. They busted what is called the blue chip ratio. There's that note, and then there's this one from Cole Kublik, who covers, of course, college football, Auburn safety, and the ESPN SEC network. 4 consecutive wins against teams with at least 40 4- and 5-star players on their roster, and they have 7. And they won 4 straight. They won 3 straight.
You didn't call Cole Kublik an Auburn safety, did you?
I said center. I said center.
Yeah, I was like, that sure as hell was not a safety at Auburn.
No, he might like me more after I said that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I cleared that up for my own sanity. But, yeah, I mean, a really impressive run by Indiana, an all-time great run. I mean, I think I said a couple years ago that anybody who's going to go win this playoff was probably, at least last year, I felt like going to be like one of the greatest teams of all time, just because we'd never seen anybody run a gauntlet like that. But for them to now do it when everybody's going, well, is it going to be possible for teams to go 16-0? And Indiana said, yep, it's possible because we're about to go do it. And they did it. And to run through the teams they ran through in the playoff alone, not to mention playing some of the teams like Oregon in the regular season. Yeah, it's one of the all-time great resumes in the history of college football, and I'm sure if you're an Indiana fan, you feel like it's the greatest resume of all time in college football. I don't know. I could not compare it to 2019 LSU and 95 Nebraska. I'm sure that research is out there. I just haven't cared enough to go search that far. But I know, regardless of what any of that info says, people are going to have their biases. But there is one thing that you have to say for sure is that Indiana is one of the greatest college football teams of all time, and there's not an argument against that. So, yeah, I don't know where they'll rank in people's brains with 0-1 Miami when all is said and done, but they're one of the best teams we've ever seen. And, yeah, just so impressed. And the blue chip ratio thing, I just think that was something that continued to fit, even though everything around it changed. And now we've finally broken that, because now the transfer portal and all of that has caught up to what was just measuring the old traditional way in a lot of senses, was just, high school recruits, and you get the best high school recruits, and then you coach them up and they stay on your roster and you go and you win national titles. Well, that's not at all how it works anymore. So yeah, the blue chip ratio, I'm sure it'll stick around and it'll still be mentioned here and there, and maybe the next 9 teams win and they have that, but Indiana just proved it's not some rock solid must have, and if you don't have this amount, then it's impossible to win a title. They turned that on its head, and I think that's good, because I think sometimes narratives can be built off something like that aren't necessarily correct. And I do feel like there were a lot of people in the last couple of years leaning on this thing from Bud Elliott, like just, why are we treating this like it's like this the greatest formula ever produced? And granted, it was right a lot of the time, but now it's not. And I think that, my point being, that's just a sign of how the game has changed now, is that you don't have to have the blue chip ratio to win a national title. It can be done in other ways, and Indiana just showed you a blueprint of how it can be done.
And look, as an angry FSU fan myself, I appreciate Bud using that to show initially, and you'll never convince me different of this, it was Bud Elliott's way of showing how Florida State wasn't doing that.
Probably.
So for fans who thought everything was fine.
I don't remember how it originated, but yeah,
I guarantee you that was part of the genesis of it. But I have a friend who, in one of my group chats last night.
You do?
I do. I have one friend. No. One of my friends I go way back with him. He is we'll just call him a recent SEC fan.
So he's a Sooner or Longhorn?
Yes, and he's not you. So you can pick the other one.
And he's a friend?
He is a friend.
Yeah.
I love him dearly. I would lay down in traffic for him, but I have to make fun of him for this. This is the SEC pilled fan thing. The Indiana thing was cute, and now I'm ready to be done with this team of 27-year-old Conference USA All-Stars BS. I said, you better get used to it, buddy, because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to.
What a whiny little comment.
The SEC fans out there who don't like the Big Ten dominance, but yeah, I don't think that's going anywhere. Now, somebody could jump up and break the streak next year. But yeah, I don't think the stories like Indiana are going to just be a one-off. And now we're going to get back to college football, I guess, the way he feels like it should be, back when they got to bend the rules a certain direction and had all the propaganda on their side and all those types of things. I mean, yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow if you're somebody that gets caught up in the conference territorial things, or you're a proud SEC fan who, whether Johnny come lately because you just joined or you've been around for forever, you're now having to sit there and watch proof in the pudding of your narrative being destroyed now, because it was one thing when it was Michigan winning a title. There's another thing when Ohio State, well, it's Ohio State.
Yep.
Now it's Indy freaking Anna. There is no like, oh, well, it's Michigan, of course, or it's Ohio State, of course. It's like, no, it's Indiana's now doing this. So who's to say that Iowa can't go win a national title with the right resources and coaching in place, or Nebraska, or whoever, if the stars align? And yeah, I mean, this was a sport that's been dominated for the last 25 years by a particular region and league for the most part. And for the last 3 years, as all these things have changed, that has changed as well. And now the Big Ten has every right to flex its muscles and say, we run this right now, because they do. They've had 3 consecutive national champions from 3 different programs, and 2 of them were your aces in the hole, and one of them was the most unforeseen national championship in college football history. So if you're in the Big Ten, you've got the benefit of that money. That certainly came in handy with Indiana's run. This wasn't all just organic fundraising and whatnot. The TV deal helped a great deal in securing some of what they have. But yeah, I think you just put a stamp on the change we've seen in the hierarchy, and the Big Ten rules the roost right now. They do. It's the proof's in the pudding. Just like when the SEC said it, I always push back sometimes because I got kind of tired of the anti-SEC thing when it came to, like, yeah, I get some guys are a bit annoying or whatever about it, but you have right to be that way in some regard when you've won 15 of the last 20 and you've had 6 different programs win some of those 15. Now, though, it's the Big Ten that's the cock of the walk. There is no doubt about it. And, yeah, it's been probably a bit life-altering for some fans out there to have to get used to that. I know for me, no skin in the game as far as that goes. I just never thought, as I was sitting there watching last night, I just never thought, forget if they're in the ACC or the Big Ten, I never thought I'd see Indiana freaking football in any league winning a national championship. So, yeah, what a world we live in now in college. And I think that no matter who you are, granted they have the biggest alumni base in the country and all of that, but no matter who you are, you have to believe after last night that you have a chance. Like if things are in order, you have a chance. Everybody can believe that now. Now, I know there's not James Madison. Okay, James Madison's not going to win a national title necessarily. But if you're on par with an Indiana to some degree, I think you feel like we can win this sucker if we put it all together.
Quarterback, head coach. In fact, I don't know if we're going to do the extended show today or not, but I know one of the calls that I received was about what you just said, about if Indiana can, then so can a few others that maybe have not ever thought they could.
Texas Tech can absolutely win a national title if Indiana can do it.
Yep.
Like BYU could win a national title if Indiana can do it.
And if your program's one of those who's been lost in the woods forever, good in the 60s like Minnesota or whatever, and you don't know, well, you know the formula's hard. It's not easy, but it's simple in its nature. Is good resource allocation, making sure you have everything that you need, and good structure, and you have a chance. If you really want to play at this, you can play at it. If you want to have a hobby, you can have a hobby. But if you're all in like Indiana was, you can win now. And there were programs, Texas A&M is one. Now, granted, they're an SEC monster now, but they've been all in for a long time, but didn't resource allocate the right way. So being all in is not necessarily the thing, but if you are all in, you can do it.
All right. Here's an interesting note. The last time, well, first of all, Indiana, the first 16-0 team ever. The last time a basketball program won the national title and went undefeated, Dennis Dodd with this nugget last night, 1976 Indiana. So they are the last team in college football to be unbeaten and win the national title, and also the last team in college basketball 50 years ago to go undefeated. That was a team with May and some others that were really, really good and won the national title under Bobby Knight.
Yeah, I mean, like I said a few moments ago, I didn't think that there would be a 16-0 team necessarily around the corner, and here we are, and we got to see it, and didn't take long to see that, yeah, somebody can run from start to finish on this thing. So I didn't know about that stat. That's good stuff, and yeah, there's a lot to celebrate right now, historically and present day for the Hoosiers fan base.
Now, a couple other things, 16-0. Now, when Steve Sarkeesian said this a year ago, he didn't say it would never happen, but he said it's very unlikely. Here is Steve Sarkeesian on how hard it is to run the table, to win a national title, to get to the playoff and then win it. Here's Steve Sarkeesian from a year ago.
Idea I think we've all got to wrap our brain around. I don't know if we'll ever see an undefeated national champion again. If we do, that's a really good team because it's just so difficult. And it's difficult, yes, because of the quality of the opponents you play, but it's so difficult to stay healthy that long. I mean, you're going to have teams in years like we had last year where you lose your starting quarterback. And how do you respond to your quarterback being down? Or you lose both your left tackles. That happened to us last year. Or your left tackle, then your right tackle. And do you have the depth to endure? And so I think you're going to see teams more and more now, 2 losses, 3 losses, maybe even 4 losses that get in. Not very different than the NCAA baseball tournament of what that looks like. I looked at Vanderbilt, I think, as a number 1 seed. There was a point in the season they were 11-10, and now they're the number 1 seed in the baseball tournament. And so I don't know, and we kind of saw it in basketball this year with Florida and them winning the national title. But this idea of somebody's going to go 16-0 in college football, man, put a statue up somewhere of that team, because I just don't know if that's going to happen again.
There you go. Put it up.
Well, I'll guarantee you there will be one. There is going to be a
Absolutely.
Signetti statue and a Mendoza statue, and you'd be foolish to not do that if you're Indiana. And, yeah, I see where Sark was coming from at that time. And also funny that it didn't take very long at all to just go completely against what he thought might happen. But I'd said that I felt the same way, that I didn't necessarily see somebody going completely unscathed from start to finish. But the Hoosiers did it, man. And that's why they are one of the greatest teams of all time. Like we said a few moments ago, they're going to be in that conversation, at least in the conversation. I don't think anybody's ready to crown them as better than 0-1 Miami or maybe even 95 Nebraska or 19 LSU, but they are in the conversation as one of the greats of all time because of the resume and just how difficult it is to be unblemished. And who's to say we see this again? I mean, just because it happened quickly doesn't mean we'll see it again anytime soon. It could be 20 years before we see a 16-0 team. Or what will it take to win a 24-team playoff? However many games that would take. I think that's probably more likely after last night, now that you've got the ability to say, oh, yeah, by the way, this is what my league wants, and we've won the last 3 national titles with 3 different teams, including the 2 obvious ones, but the most unlikely one that you ever could have pictured in your lifetime, winning a title as well. So, yeah, it's an incredible run, and what a game to cap it all off last night.
Yeah, in my own receipts on Twitter, somebody named Corey's Dumb Thought, who I have several conversations with throughout the year, likes to send me things. He said after Oregon beat Penn State, he said Oregon going 12-0, and I said nobody's going 12-0, and he sent that back to me. I said, well, I guess I got to take the L on this one. And I thought, as good as anybody is, you're going to have a week where you're not. Indiana was a miracle catch away from having it themselves, and that catch by Omar Cooper against Penn State allowed this to happen. Otherwise, they didn't really have that moment. They had one moment of sticky fingers that saved their undefeated season. And yes, because of what they have to do now, it is that much more impressive.
Yeah, the Cooper catch was not the hard part. It was getting the opposite foot down with gravity working against you. But it was, yes, a tremendous catch to get as high as he did and make the catch and come down in bounds. Every team, the most dominant teams, except maybe a handful, had some scare in some way, and yet still won enough games to remain undefeated, go on to win a national title.
I mean, they had the Iowa game as well. That was a very close game and a thriller that they were able to finish out and win. And so they've had some challenges along the way. And last night was a big challenge as well. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but it definitely felt like even when Miami was down, like they're going to win this game. When you have them popping off the big play, it just felt like, damn, Indiana can't really stop them. And it's tough sledding on the other side. Like if they can just get a stop here or what have you, then then I think Miami's got a great chance to win this football game. And ultimately, Indiana just, like, for example, the fourth down call. I mean, that was the stuff that put them over the top. The blocked punt was absolutely massive as well. Those little plays that were massive plays, those were the difference makers in us talking about this Indiana team being perfect and unbeaten, and talking about what would have been an incredible story with Miami, who almost didn't even get into the damn thing, going into it and saying, all right, this is the biggest mistake you made, was letting us in this thing, because now we're going to run the table, and they nearly did that. So I know a lot of the attention will be on Indiana, and a lot of people love seeing Carson Beck fail last night. I don't know how I feel about him. I flip-flop on Carson Beck on like my it's definitely not fandom in any way, shape, or form, but I don't know. I like him sometimes when I watch him. There's other times I'm like, no, I don't like that influencer. Like, you know what I mean? And I wasn't really enjoying his last play as a college football player, but there was something so fitting about it at the same time, you know? And yeah, that was an incredible run by the Canes, who almost didn't even get into the field, but Miami was the team of the year. And so it was fitting that it was them that we're talking about at the very end here.
All right. We have Chris Hummer to get to in about 8 to 10 minutes. We'll make sure we do that. We will do the AP poll that comes out after the national championship and see who moved up, who moved down. And the state of Texas, well represented this year in the end, with how many teams are ranked inside the top 25. So unbelievable. Congratulations. Kirk Signetti did it, and his team made enough plays. I thought the game was going to end up like 14-9, the way it was going in the first half. Miami couldn't move the ball. They didn't really do anything until the long run in the start of the third quarter. Indiana, Mendoza was getting sacked and flushed, and you hadn't seen that. They were in his grill. Coogan, who's the All-American offensive lineman for Indiana, said it was the best defensive line he's ever faced, and said that was grown man football. That was a lot of fun. They were unbelievably good, too.
Well, it was like Ruben Bain and company were going to just absolutely give them hell fits all night and win the game that way. Like, that's what it felt like early on, to me at least, was, oh, damn, I don't think Indiana's going to be able to hold up with these guys, because they were just so active right away. And obviously the game played out the way that it did. But, yeah, I'm not surprised to hear somebody say, I mean, Ruben Bain's an absolute monster, and that Miami defense was every bit legitimate and every bit worth every drop of praise they've received, especially during this postseason run. That's why they were in this game. Carson Beck had very little to do with it ultimately. I mean, some key plays here and there, the run to win the game a couple weeks ago, obviously, but their offense was on the struggle bus for a lot of the playoff, and that defense was carrying them. And at College Station and the wind, it was the defense winning a low-scoring game. Ultimately, the defense last night looked like it was going to kind of set the tone, but just the critical plays were made by the Hoosiers. And, I think that's what I said earlier is, like, for Miami, I think it's got to be – it's a tough night's sleep anyways when you lose a game like that you'll probably never play in again for a lot of these guys. But it's also brutal when you look back at it and you go, damn, we probably should have won this game. Like, you can feel justified saying that as a Miami fan, because there really were like a couple things go different. Like, the punter doesn't decide, like, I'm just going to take my time or if the blocker gives a little bit more effort just to push the defender Kamara off course just a little bit so he doesn't quite get there, or any number of 1,000 other things that could have gone differently in that game. Miami was not far off from winning that bad boy, no matter how many big fourth down conversions Indiana had or whatever. And, I think that's a great team that unfortunately is not going to probably be remembered nearly the same because it fell short. But kudos to Miami for getting in this thing and not just bowing right out in College Station right away. Like, they earned every bit of that invite and then some. And it's just really bittersweet because, man, you had a chance to win. No, you were good enough to win that game. You did.
Night. You had chances. You kept bouncing back, showed great resiliency, but they never led the game. Another team Indiana plays that they pretty much did. But I thought when they kept answering after they were down, I said they're going to come down to the last field goal or whatever and win the game at the end.
And they had the ball with a chance to go do that, and then Carson Beck throws a pick. Yeah,
I think Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor ranks up there with the best pass rushing duos in the history of college football. Those guys were lethal all year long, and for Indiana, who hadn't really had much of a problem with that against many of the teams they played, even ones with elite pass rushers, them switching sides constantly. And then when the right tackle went out and them really doing that at the beginning of the third quarter, you could see how Miami can win games when their offense didn't have their A game, because they were just punishing quarterbacks to the point of, I don't know how many guys they played down the stretch once those guys got really super hot, that after the game where I don't know if I can throw the ball as far as I can. I don't know if I want to. I'm hurting because they hit you hard.
By the way, 9 tackles behind the line of scrimmage for Miami, 3 sacks and 6 tackles for losses on top of that. And there's a picture, Holly Rowe had a picture in the post game of Mendoza doing an interview, and his arms looked like they had been beaten with a baseball bat. They were battered, bruised, and all of that. And yet he showed toughness, of course, that run itself. But he got hit quite a bit by Miami's defense and still kept on going. When we come back, Chris Hummer from 247 CBS Sports. He also does a lot of work when it comes to covering a ton with Matt Zenitz on the transfer portal, but his thoughts about Indiana, Miami, and more. This is 365 Sports. So earlier today, I'm doing a spin class. I'm working out, and I was able to do the spin class, and I've now done 2 or 3 in a row, and I wasn't able to do that for about a year and a half because there's a lot of pressure on your back, your hip, and also your quads. And I was able to do it at a very, very good speed, and it felt great being able to do that. And you know why? Because QC's Kinetics. QC Kinetics, 40,000 people. 40,000 people. It's the number of people choosing pain relief without surgery, like I did. Now, I don't know if I was ever going to have surgery, but then I was given yet another option other than injections in my lower back that would kick the can down the road. And I started taking treatment and getting treatment from QC Kinetics, the nation's leading cellular level treatments to revitalize joint tissue naturally. In other words, they will take your blood and they will spin it and they'll put it back in you. Stem cells for my left hip bone, put it back in me. It has been working. It feels great not to have that nagging pain, and doing a class in which I haven't really wanted to do, shied away from doing, and doing it at full throttle. It is unbelievable what it can do for you too. If you have been through all of the various treatments and none of them work, before you do surgery, contact QC Kinetics with locations in Houston and Dallas and other places too. But those are 2 huge markets for what we do here on 365 Sports with viewership. Activate your body's natural heating power. Use what you have when it comes to real science from your own body. QCkinetics.com.
My go-to guy, can you fix my smartphone?
Yes.
Do you have car batteries?
Yeah.
What about golf cart batteries?
Of course.
Battery from a G-Fob?
Absolutely.
My boat?
Huge variety.
Toy boat?
Sure.
Motorcycles?
You bet.
My apartment building?
Whole building.
Do you have batteries for my party lights?
Yeah.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
Save big during the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Waco. Drive a new Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with $13,000 off, or choose 0% financing. Get a new Laramie Crew Cab 4-wheel drive with 3.9% financing for 72 months, plus $15,000 off MSRP. Explore in a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, starting at $31,990. Happening now at Allen Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Bold are the adventurous. Determined are the leaders. Faithful are the healers. At Baylor, you'll find your calling, your people, and your purpose. Dare to be you, indeed.
Marco's only uses premium toppings, which means your pizza isn't just flavorful, it's mushroom-full, or sausage-full, or pepperoni-full. And you can get unlimited medium one-topping pizzas from the place named America's favorite pizza chain, starting at $8.99 every day, only at Marco's.
I pitched in the major leagues for 24 years, and let me tell you, I can feel it in my joints.
shoulders, elbows, and knees. Trust me, pain doesn't retire when you do. I tried everything to get rid of the pain. Nothing worked until QC Kinetics.
Baseball legend Roger Clemens and other patients are getting lasting relief with QC Kinetics regenerative treatments. No surgery.
I trust QC Kinetics. You should too. Let's commit to getting rid of all the pain.
Schedule your free consultation today. QC Kinetics. Better starts here.
You got batteries for my side-by-side?
Yes.
Replace my flashlight?
Sure thing. What about my business?
Oh, good one.
100%. Batteries for my fleet of trucks?
Gas floor scrubbers?
Yes, and fire panels. We have pallets of batteries.
Well, what about...
As your go-to guy, if it needs a battery, we have it.
Well, that's all you had to say.
Could have led with that.
Batteries Plus, the experts in charge.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Chris Hummer, 247, CBS Sports. He and his partner, Matt Zenitz, do an incredible job with the transfer portal, but really covering college football. And I just saw the number. Alberto Mendoza, Fernando's brother, is headed to play at Georgia Tech after entering the portal. Chris, thank you very much. By the way, seriously, I'll say this. You and what you guys have done covering the portal is crazy good. Really crazy good. And I wanted to make sure we mention that off the top. How intense is that, keeping up with it?
It's exhaustive. This year was more than it's ever been. It was condensed into 15 days technically, but that really stretched into mid-November. I mean, I didn't go outside as much as I should have the last couple of months, but it's exciting too. Like at the end of the day, like you get ready for this time of year all year, and people really care about transactions in college football, man. So just try to keep up as you can. And you had the Damon Williams saga. Then you had, of course, what was going to happen. Well, Darian Mensah and among others, and that all kind of sprinkled in there too, other than just guys getting in the portal and going somewhere. Oh yeah, I mean, it's becoming very common for players to sue schools and schools to sue players. It's crazy. I mean, this cycle alone, like if you look at the top of our board in terms of uncommitted players, you have Darian Mensah at the top quarterback. Yep. He hasn't picked a school. He's getting sued by Duke. And you have Damon Wilson, the top edge rusher, who hasn't picked a school. He's being sued by his last school, not Missouri, but the one before that, Georgia, for a breach of contract, or he is suing Georgia. So it is, it's really all over the board.
Chris, how did Indiana maximize the portal better than anybody before them?
I don't know if you could say they did it better than anyone before them. I mean, even like you go back to TCU, right? Like before Indiana made it, TCU was the Cinderella story of the college football playoff era. They made it to the college football playoff. They obviously got walloped when they were there by Georgia, but they made it. I think what Indiana did really well and what they maximized is balancing what they do best, which is getting smart, high ceiling athletic players in the portal that they know they can coach up in their system, with getting the right guys in the portal in terms of age. I think Indiana has the oldest roster in college football. It's a benefit of kind of the last embers of the COVID era of college athletics. You still have guys playing their 5th and 6th seasons, 7th in some cases, and that really matters. Curt Signetti took old players. He coached them up in a way that clearly he has something over everybody else, and they found the right pieces in the portal, and they're not all flashy big names. Like obviously Fernando Mendoza, everybody knows now, coming over from Cal, but he was a guy that personnel and scout people really liked at Cal last year, but he's certainly not a household name when Indiana took him. You think about somebody like D'Angelo Pons, who Curt Signetti signed at James Madison 3 years ago. He's a freshman All-American corner for them, but that staff had the vision even then to go get him, and he turned into one of the best corners in America. And you can go down the list a lot. I don't think there's like one specific thing that Indiana did better, but holistically and encompassingly of the portal, they found out a way to take advantage to the maximum degree and fit it within what they do well.
So, Chris, there were some things that were advantageous for Indiana. Big Ten money certainly helped in being in that league, and the competition they faced prepared them well. But they are in one of the better paid leagues. You can't just grow a Signetti on a tree. Like you can want a Signetti, but there's only a Signetti, and they've got a massive alumni base. So not everybody has all of those things. But do you think this shows everybody out there that you really do have a chance? Maybe not East Texas A&M, obviously. But do you think this does show that pretty much everybody, if they have the right alignment, does have a crack in this era of actually going to the mountaintop? Or do you think it's still reserved for a class of a couple of leagues or so?
Well, I do want to say first, there's a couple things with that. One, I think the money stuff with Indiana is a little overstated. The Mark Cuban stuff and everything else. Like, this roster at Indiana was not one of the most expensive in college football. It just wasn't. It was more expensive than it was previously at Indiana, but I don't think they were in the top 10 or 15 nationally in terms of roster spend. They will be next year. Like, there's been investment and alignment in terms of that going into next year. But this year, not really. But I do think holistically, when you kind of think about what Indiana just did, it does show how the era has shifted. I am a really big proponent of high school recruiting rankings mattering, in terms of stars mattering, in terms of how you can win a national championship. But last night, for the first time ever, blue chip ratio, which is Bud Elliott's baby, was busted. Every other champion in the 24/7 Sports team talent composite era was a top 10 team in terms of like the talent overall in the roster. That was busted last night by Indiana too. So it shows if you can find the right coach, find the right quarterback, which I think is key here. They had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback come through, and you can find the right pieces on a roster. More teams than ever can be competitive. Do I think some people are going to be swinging out of their shoes and pushing themselves further behind by like expecting too much out of their coaches and their programs? Absolutely. This is an abnormality. I don't think it's the norm, but it does show what's possible.
Chris, does this also, you mentioned it shows it's possible. If you look at the big, like the ACC was on the cusp of a national title. It just didn't work out for Miami, but the Big 12 needs one. Now, whether they'll play for one anytime soon, who knows? But does this give the Tech or BYU or whoever else can get the talent as they're getting the talent, and the coaches, are they set up? Can they now feel like that's just around the corner?
I mean, Texas Tech was right there this year. I know it didn't work out against Oregon, and I think that was a tough matchup for them in some ways. But, I mean, Texas Tech's going to be just as good, if not better, next year. I think the problem for the Big 12 as a whole is the money just isn't there in the same way as you see in the Big 10. Like, the Big 10 and the SEC get, like, I don't know, like, you probably have 10 plus rosters in each conference that are going to cost $25 million next year, I would say, give or take a couple, right? And in the Big 12, you're going to have one, and that's Texas Tech. And the ACC, even, I know Miami just made it there. You're probably going to have one, maybe two, if you include Clemson. Florida State's going to be kind of pushing that too, but there just aren't a lot of teams in either league that can spend that way. So it's going to take alignment and a push from administrations in the Big 12 to get themselves to that number. I do think BYU will push there eventually. We've shown them spending big to keep their head coach, Kalani Sitake, obviously over Penn State. Mm-hmm. There just aren't a lot of teams in the Big 12 that spend to that degree.
Chris, I told Smokey this earlier today. I was working with a event venue here in town last year, and I asked a friend of mine who was helping them out with their business, what their long-term business plan was. And he said they don't really have a business plan. They have a hobby right now. Do you feel that schools need to kind of decide if they want to play in this thing or be hobbyists when it comes to raising the funds?
I think right now everybody's going to chase. And I think eventually private equity will help that chase. But until you get a really set answer from the NCAA and college football with what the rules are going to look like moving forward, it's hard to make a permanent decision. I do think eventually some people will become more hobbyist than actual contenders, but at the same time, it's always been that way. I mean, it's funny, right? Like, I would have said 5 years ago, if I was thinking of a Big Ten team as an example of this, Indiana would have been top of mind. But
I was saying they were the worst team. Is like they were my example that I was like, oh, it's not like they're Indiana or something. Like, I was saying that like a year and a half ago.
They were literally the losingest team in college football history a year and a half ago. Northwestern now owns that title, but it can change in an instant if you get the right coach and the right investment. But also, like, a lot of dogs are going to be chasing their tail, right? Like, you tell your boosters one year, like, oh, if we get $15 million to get the full rev share, you can compete. Now the ask is like, hey, like, we need an extra 7, like, in order to pay our roster. And eventually you're going to get donor fatigue. Eventually you're going to have teams that are in debt, like literal athletic departments that are in significant debt that are going to need bailouts. And I think eventually that chase will cause a few people to pull over and ask what we're doing. When that's going to happen, I don't know. Like, there's so much money that comes from these big conferences. You can't voluntarily exit them, but at some point it's going to shrink. Like, there's no question about that.
Based on the history of college football, Chris, they'll worry about that when it actually happens. Like, they're going to wait until the car crashes and they'll be like, well, probably should have thought about this, shouldn't we? I mean, that kind of feels how history has gone so far.
Well, they'll wait for the car to crash, then they'll ask Congress for help to fix it.
Exactly right. Take it to the Congress repair shop. Miami, great season. There's this Darian Mensah story. Just curious your thoughts on not like the outcome of that, but assuming that they're able to work the legal system to where he's able to play at Miami next year. Just your thoughts on them regrouping from this, and how in it for the long haul do you feel like Cristobal and the Canes are right now?
I think Mario Cristobal is always going to have his teams in the mix because of how he recruits. He is one of the truly elite recruiters in the country. He's a maniacal recruiter. Like, if you talk to people who work for him. So I think Miami's going to be fine. The path for Miami is always going to be favorable. While they're in the ACC, they are the most talented team in that league, especially with Clemson coming down and Florida State a little lost in the wilderness. It's not close. So I think Miami annually, as long as they get the quarterback position right and don't shoot themselves in the foot, which had also often been the problem under Mario Cristobal, they're going to be in a position to compete for a while. And I think Darian Mensah is the quarterback that can kind of do that for them next year. I would say right now, Darian Mensah is an upgrade over Carson Beck. I think he's going to put Miami in a better position to win games next year than Carson Beck did. Now, I heard you'll say coming into this that Miami has had one of the best edge rushing duos in college football history. I totally agree. And it's going to be difficult to replace, but Miami recruits the trenches very hard. And I think that focus by Mario Cristobal and his staff are going to make Miami relevant for a long time.
Do you think that Darian Mensah gets to Miami and the legal stuff can operate in the background?
I think it's possible. I mean, we saw it happen with Xavier Lucas and Miami this year. Wisconsin essentially sued Miami for tampering. Kind of like it's a weird specific case thing, but Xavier Lucas played last night in the national championship game. He played all season. He never actually entered the transfer portal. He just showed up at Miami. And I think we all know eventually when you get on the field, everything else becomes secondary for 18 weeks a year. And I don't know. It depends on what a judge in North Carolina says. Maybe he sides with Duke and Mensah's kind of path there is derailed, but I would be surprised based on what we know recently about college athletics if Darian Mensah wasn't Miami's quarterback next year. And it was just kind of a side note to his story and Miami's story going into next season.
Chris, how much of the money that we hear is being spent on players or in a class? And you mentioned how many might be above 25 million. How much of it is exaggerated?
I mean, some of it's exaggerated. Some numbers that are out there are good. Some numbers are bad. But I mean, I did a story about what the numbers were going to look like going into this cycle. I felt really good about it. I talked to a ton of general managers and agents going into the cycle about what it would look like. And then 6 weeks later, I look back on it and I'm like, dang, I was really low on some of these. It's just because the market changed. And when people bid, they bid and it drives up the market. So I think some of the numbers that you hear are ridiculous, like the $10 million number of Darian Mensah, I would call out as one of those. But a lot of the rumors and stuff you hear out there about these things are definitely true. And there's big money being thrown around.
Who spent more money and wasted it because of what their eventual ending was this year? And it's kind of, there's 130 something teams out there, but who may have wasted more NIL or money bringing players in, but did not show for it with their record?
Oh, I mean, Florida State spent a ton of money and was a disaster this year. I would think about them.
We got an FSU grad here. Keep it up.
Yeah,
keep it up.
Yeah,
man.
Paul.
Keep talking about how bad that was.
Just stab me in the heart.
My bad. But I mean,
it's fine.
No, it's true.
What is it? What's the thing that they throw into the ground on the field, right? Like, what's
the spear. Yeah,
the spear. I mean, spear right to the heart this year. It was bad. They spent a ton of money for not a lot of success. Auburn spent a ton of money only for Hugh Freeze to get fired midway for the season, and they had to pay a lot of money to buy him out. Teams like that come to mind first.
Yep.
I do, and this is just from me listening to what the administration has said about that. I think there's far more teams telling their fans they are spending more money than they are, or telling them exactly how much they're spending and then it blowing up in their face than somebody saying that Miami's spending $50 million on the roster, and them being like, are we? I don't know. I think that's more, let's see how much we can lie to the people and get them to believe that we really care.
I mean, perception certainly matters, and there are certainly teams that exaggerate what they spend, but I can tell you in Florida State's standpoint and Auburn standpoint, they spent a lot of money and not a lot of results. So there is some of that out there, though, for sure.
I do think Wisconsin got caught maybe pretending like they were going all out, and then they had to admit when they brought back Luke Fickell that, maybe we weren't.
Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin spent more money than they had in the past, and that's the thing. It's all subjective, right? A lot of money to a program. If you're spending $5 million the year before, and then you spent $10 million the next year, that's a big jump, and that is a lot of money. But if you're spending $10 million and a team in your conference is spending 25, it still pales in comparison. So I think it could all be semantics, but I mean, Luke Fickell in Wisconsin, tough case, right? You pay Billy Edwards, I think they paid him 1.5, and he got hurt immediately. That was their big kind of swing of the offseason. And then they were kind of stuck with a rotation of terrible quarterbacks. So it can get off the rails quick, but the money in this area is always interesting.
Good job, as always, Chris, and thank you very much for what you do, not just with the portal, but covering college football. Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your time. Go get some rest.
Soon, hopefully. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good luck with that. That's, again, our good friend Chris Hummer with us from CBS Sports, 247 Sports. And from CBS, Shahan Jeraja just around the corner. Our conversation with Baylor's new AD, Doug McNamee, we'll have that in the 4 o'clock hour. Craig's off the radar, too. And so much more. This is 365 Sports. Don Chimidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills and in between Valley Mills and Richland Drive in Waco. 48-foot walk-in humidor. Macanudo and Ashton, Romeo and Julieta, Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Padron, Cohiba, they have it. The best brands in America, the best brands in the country, obviously in the world too. And they also have all of the accessories you need, from the humidor to put the cigars in, whether you have a smaller one of 10, 12, or 20, or one that might have or hold 50, 60, or 100. And then what you need with that, the torch lighters, the what you do to clip the cigars, the cutters, and then even what you need, the pouches to keep your cigars in the humidor moist, fresh, and ready to go. And then on top of that, they have fresh ground coffee beans. If you want them, one of the biggest flavors is Cowboy, what I was told by Joshua, and also Cheyenne. It's Don Chimidor and Coffee Beans inside the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
With over 25 years of excellence in IT, Carrion Solutions is your trusted technology partner. From managed IT services to cutting-edge cybersecurity, our expert team delivers tailored solutions that drive success. Our portfolio includes products such as Veeam, Bitdefender, Microsoft, Cisco, and Fortinet. Call David Carrion and his team of experts. Call 888-522-2221 or visit us at carrionsolutions.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
It's time to compete against yourself, finding too many excuses not to work out combined with bad eating habits, and Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness can help reach inside your competitive soul. Discipline, getting results you've only dreamed about, personal training, group exercise classes, and even a tanning bed, world-class tennis facility, and pickleball courts and lessons available. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, spacious, clean workout rooms, free weights, state-of-the-art technology, weight training equipment, and no intimidation. It's time for you to react today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
At BK4, we step onto the field every day for our customers. Here, legends are born and glory is earned. The spirit of competition unites us all as we stand as one. It's more than a truck, it's a passion. Get ready for the thrill, the triumphs, and the unforgettable moments that only BK Ford can deliver. Are you ready to experience better? BK Ford.
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson with Camille Johnson Realtors. We specialize in selling residential real estate agent all across our community, and we love serving all types of families. We have been in business at Camille Johnson Realtors for almost 9 years, and I have been a residential real estate agent for almost 40 years. And we love our partnership with 365. So thank you for partnering with me, and thank you so much to all of my clients who have made our company a success.
This is 365 Sports.
365 Sports, this 4 o'clock hour, locked and loaded, taking you up until, well, till around 5:30 or so. And there is the newly elected president of the Football Writers Association of America, our very own CBS's Shahan Jeraja. Hey, congratulations, sir.
Thank you so much. And yeah, it's a real honor and looking forward to getting started.
Well, you've earned it with your coverage and all the things you represent. Thank you very much for your time. Indiana absolutely damn sure did it, didn't they?
Yeah, it was incredible to watch. Obviously a huge performance by them. The sort of performance that you've been waiting for. It was offense, defense, special teams. It was big plays in the biggest moments. It was Fernando Mendoza with one of the biggest fourth quarter touchdowns in a national title game you'll ever see. I mean, it was just so fitting, right? I was out there at Hard Rock Stadium, and when you look at that crowd, I mean, it was probably a 65-35 Indiana crowd in the middle of that stadium, really all week long. We were staying near downtown Miami. It was Indiana red everywhere that you looked. It just feels like the culmination of one of the most incredible college football stories that we've ever seen. And now, Curt Signetti elevates himself into that conversation for best coach in college football. Fernando Mendoza elevates himself to, the position of one of the greatest transfers in the history of the sport. And also, I wrote about this after the game. Those 7 players who transferred from James Madison, many of them who earned all conference and all America honors, they really kind of become the core of what was one of the greatest rebuilds in the history of college football.
It is two different stories. I mean, Miami was a rebuild in their own right, but at least they had street cred. At least they could say they had, hey, look, if we've got everything in place, this is a really fun place to be. Curt Signetti did this with, you just have to trust me. And that is the hardest thing to do.
No, 100%. And, he said it right off the top, right? I win. Google me. And he even said it when he went into that first basketball game and said, we're going to beat the hell out of Ohio State and we're going to beat the hell out of Michigan. Like, no problem. And, people, I think, really gravitated towards somebody at Indiana football saying, this is not a place where you should feel less than. This is a place where we should expect big things. And a lot has been made, certainly, about, the investment monetarily, and it's significant compared to what there's been in the past. But it's also been an incredible story of evaluation, of development, of staff continuity. That might be one of the most underrated parts. I mean, you talk about his 2 coordinators, Bryant Haynes and Mike Shanahan. They've been with him since the IUP days when he was coaching in Division II. So I think that this is just the culmination of so much, right? And I think that Curt Signetti and his cult of personality, maybe you can call it, is right at the center.
Yeah, he is the king of walking the walk. I mean, he talked the talk, and little did we know at the time, like, oh, who's this guy? And man, he has certainly walked the walk. Shahan, so many massive plays in that game. where does your brain go now? And when you think back on this game years from now, where will your brain go to like a moment in last night's game that just kind of encompassed the outcome, the Indiana story, and so on and so forth?
Well, there are several, of course, that I think are going to be notable for years to come, but I don't think you can go any other direction than 4th and 5 in the red zone. Fernando Mendoza calls his own number. And after the game, actually, he said that, there was kind of a call that if they're in man, we do this. If we're in zone, we do this. And they ran, obviously they're a really good defensive team, Miami is. They ran a system that was half man and half zone on different sides of the field. And so he's like, you know what? I'm doing it myself. And he obviously breaks through the line. Fernando actually said after the game that this team is so close, that they value each other so much that after even some of the big runs that Fernando has, his teammates on the sideline will say, man, you looked really dumb running there. Even in the biggest plays of his life. But, I think that moment, of course, will stand above calling his own number. And that picture of him reaching across the goal line while being bludgeoned by 2 defenders and getting into the end zone. Obviously, there were more plays to come. Miami obviously went and scored another touchdown. Indiana needed to stop. They needed a late field goal. But that was the moment in so many people's minds where they put the game away.
Does this give everybody a chance now to feel like they can do it?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing, because look, we don't have to like oversay, right? Like this is a Big Ten program. This is still a giant,
right.
Media rights check, all this sort of stuff. Put that context, of course, in it. But I think that what this says more than anything else is that there are different ways to build rosters than there have ever been before. I think that, this was actually something I was fascinated about a couple of years ago when Nick Saban retired. I don't think that people even now understand the shadow that Nick Saban cast over the sport. And he cast it from the perspective of, yes, there are teams in the SEC that can win the title every year, but you knew every single year for 15 years that Alabama was on that list, that there was at least one elite team in the SEC every single year. That's obviously off the table. There's also the program and roster building approach that Nick Saban employed, where he got all these 5-stars and stacked talent and kept them on campus and managed to program them in so many ways in such a way that they were willing to sit for 2, 3, 4 years before they even got on the field. Well, that's over with. That there isn't a coach, even when you talk about the Steve Sarkeesians and the Kirby Smarts, who are able to do exactly that anymore with Nick Saban out of the game. So there's different ways to approach it. The way that I've compared this in so many ways is, think about March Madness. It's not 1-to-1. Obviously, roster building is a little different in those two sports, but you have heading into the tournament these teams that are stacked with the future NBA players, Duke, Kentucky, all these schools, Arkansas obviously now. And then you have the teams that have a bunch of 4 and 5 year guys who have spent at least 3 years together. And even though they're nowhere near as talented and don't have a single NBA player on it, you see a team like Clemson or Wofford or, whoever else you want to throw out there come together and put together a really strong team-based performance. That's possible now in college football in a different kind of way because of the chaos of the transfer portal. And I think that when you look at specifically the Big Ten winning 3 straight national championships, they are embracing patience, I think, in roster building in a way that the SEC, with all the pressures and chaos, just can't match.
Shahan, speaking of like that Alabama stranglehold that was there forever and ever, it seemed like, if they're not number 1, they're number 2. If they're not number 2, they're number 3. I'm looking at all these preseason, and CBS put out one of them, the preseason top 25, and they're like at 15, 17. They're like 20. Like I had to pick my jaw up off the floor to realize kind of where we are right now. But it does make it more fun because they're not that guaranteed surefire thing at 1, 2, or 3 every single year.
No, it totally changes the game. And look, obviously, Brandon Marcel puts ours out at CBS Sports, and there are many of the same, sort of teams at the top, especially in these preseason rankings. But you do have to understand now that there is going to be more transients with some of these top programs. In fact, Georgia was a team this year that was kind of going through their rebuild. Maybe that culminates with being a little bit further along next year. Same with Ohio State. But you're going to have teams like Alabama where, you maybe thought that you could contend and be at that elite level every single year. Well, it's just too hard to be able to do that in this era where, obviously you're having to deal with guys turning over so quickly. They're going to have a new starting quarterback for the third year in a row. And then on top of that, I mean, financially, when you talk about Alabama specifically, like they are struggling without kind of that Saban discount that's been given to them over the years. Now they're still very, very talented. Nobody should weep for Alabama, but you see Texas come in at the last second and take their top running back transfer commit to be Texas's second running back transfer commit. And then, of course, you think about even, with other Southern programs, right? LSU loses Bryce Underwood because they just can't keep up with the money that Michigan's bringing to the table. There are going to be more examples of that as some of these well-money, big alumni-based Midwestern and Northern schools start coming to the table. So, again, Alabama is always going to mean something. They're always going to have some of the most talented rosters in college football, but they're going to have to realize, I think, pretty quick, we have to pick our timeline, and that means we're going to have some years that maybe people don't feel very good about.
Well, it's the difference between and ba, right? Because a lot of these schools had millionaires that were doing this for a long time, and Texas has billionaires, Tech has billionaires, yep. But Michigan, Ohio State, and all these schools that were well-established titans of industry for a lot longer than some of these other schools have deeper pockets because of that. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just 100 years of history that now you have people who are also willing to donate because they wouldn't do it because it was against the rules before. It was a little untoward in their circle, as where in this part of the country, it was toward. It was fine. Everything was fine, right, Sean?
No, absolutely. And I think that certainly, whenever the history is written of this moment, people are going to look back and say, the balance of power shifted when it became legal to pay players as opposed to some of the under the table stuff that certainly has been a little more accepted in the SEC. And by the way, we can even go back to the Southwest Conference and all before that as well. But I think it's a really good point that you bring up, and an important one when it comes to understanding this moment. There is one billionaire in the state of Alabama, and he's an Auburn fan, right? So that's the sort of challenges that you run into where, historically, again, you have, let's call it hundreds of car dealerships and dozens of, bankers and things like that who are able to put together a lot of money. Well, again, there obviously Phil Knight has been a great example of this at Oregon. There's one guy who can write a check and change everything. I think that when you talk about Southern programs, Texas as a state is very different because it's a more sort of business-friendly, modernized state. So Texas A&M, Texas Tech, even if you want to throw Baylor, SMU, and TCU in there as well, they have multiples of billionaires, multiples of titans of industry. And one thing that I don't even think that I realized to this until the playoff run, Indiana has the biggest alumni base in the country out of any school. And so you're talking about a level of numbers that's just impressive. You obviously look at their 3 playoff games. They took over each of those stadiums. In the Rose Bowl, it was probably a 70-30 game. In the Peach Bowl, it was probably a 95-5 game against Oregon. And then in the national title game, they walked into Miami's home stadium and took it over. It was a 65-35 crowd game there. They just have so many numbers. They have so many people with money, and they have so much investment. And again, that's going to matter more long-term for, attracting talent, for fundraising long-term, for creating lasting fan support than just having a moderate-sized group of extremely passionate fans that at a certain point are just like, man, I make $35K a year. You can't ask me to donate $100 a month for years on end.
Yeah, how much Indiana merch, and this is with anyone who wins it, but there's a who did the story? I can't remember now. Justin Williams from theathletic.com did a story about the couple of home field, whatever it is, selling mainly apparel. Indiana. Yeah. She's a Michigan grad. They said, oh, what the hell? They would have just been one of 50 for Michigan. They are making hand over fist money now, even before winning last night, Shahan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the thing is too, right? Is like whenever you're on the early entry of something, it's just different, right? We obviously got to see that both, frankly, with Baylor football and men's basketball and women's basketball, of course, as well. I'll tell you what, I paid a pretty penny to go out and see that game out in Indianapolis in 2021 to go see a national championship, right? And I think that again, you have that combination of spectacle. This is truly once in a lifetime, right? Like this has never happened in any lifetime, in fact. And we'll see, obviously, long term if Indiana kind of becomes one of the power players of college football for years to come. But like, this is the first. This is always going to be the first. And on top of that, I think that one thing that's often undervalued about moments like this is that now everybody who is an Indiana fan, but two, especially those who are either active students or recent graduates, they are going to be involved in it forever, right? Like I was talking to an Indiana fan and I'm like, and he kind of joked, like, I feel like I have to give some apologies to like old Indiana basketball fans. Cause yeah, like, of course you always want to get back to that moment. You probably think like we can do the 70s all over again. Right. And that's how they said they're going to feel for this moment, right? It's like, you know what, for 50 years, I'm going to never shut up about this team because this was something that I never thought would happen.
It's easier said than done to tell everybody during the journey to embrace it, to cherish it, to enjoy it, because you never know if you're going to get it again. And then sometimes teams just win forever, but it's a great thing, great history with what Indiana and Signetti did. Thank you, man. Congratulations. So you were voted in. Bill Bender, who we've had on this show from the Football Writers Association of America, and now you're next in line. What does that mean? Anything additional for you when it comes to your workload?
A little bit, not nothing too crazy, but I'll have the opportunity to obviously be involved with kind of the FWAA executive committee. I'll be able to kind of have a bigger voice when it comes to what our priorities are, when it comes to dealing with some of our whether it's dealing with kind of the SIDs Association, whether it's with dealing with kind of media rights stuff, and also I'll play a big role in going and trying to set our priorities. So, whether that be our, the ways that we support our writers, whether that be, I'll be involved with some of the awarding of, the Nagurski Award, Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year Award. So it's a lot of little things put together. So I'm very excited for my year in 2026.
What's your position on Greenland? No, do you guys deal with that?
Yeah. Listen, man, he's at the games now. Maybe I can get in his ear about it. Yep. My opinion right now is strictly neutral.
Smart man. Shahan, thank you. Shahan Jeraja, CBS Sports, with us on Tuesdays throughout the year and the day after the championship game. It's been a great run to have you as a part of the show. When we come back, Craig Smoak and Off the Radar, right around the corner, Baylor Director of Athletics Doug McNamee joined us earlier today in the studio, and we'll have that conversation with him for the first time since he was named the AD a few weeks back. And this is 365 Sports. Baylor alumni. There's not much going on right now with basketball. There's games that are on the road. Of course, both the men and women. The women playing pretty well. The men aren't. And they have Texas Tech, I think, that's next. But when they do travel, whether it's football season, which gets most of the attention, or elsewhere, when it comes to NCAA tournament travel up in Kansas City for the Big 12 basketball tournament or more, Baylor alumni, including Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe, will be there to make sure that you enjoy that particular event. And by the way, they'll take over like the team hotel in the lobby and have all sorts of stuff that you want that is for what you want to get in with Baylor. And then they'll have pep rallies and much more. If you have an event and you want it promoted, I can't imagine anywhere else you'd want to promote other than going, first of all, to Baylor alumni with Doug Furch and also Paul Thorpe. Baylor alumni, go to Facebook and baylor.edu.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
No car payments for 90 days when you bring your auto loan home to Genco. Get 4.79% for 48 months and make no payments until 2026. Plus, get entered to win 3 months of no car payments. Bring your auto loan home to Genco. Lower your interest rate, save money, and no payments until 2026. Special is subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. Visit GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome back into 365 Sports. Time for a little Off the Radar, as we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Just take a look around at a grab bag of stories. And right now, college football having ended, we spent a lot of time on that. A lot of the other headlines belong, as you might imagine, to the NFL with their coaching carousel, as hot as it's ever been, matching the heat of the college football coaching carousel, which we thought probably couldn't be matched because just the number of jobs and all these different things opening up. And the NFL said, hey, just like in pretty much everything else, we'll match you, if not surpass you. Now, it hasn't been by the numbers, but they're only dealing with 32 teams, and there has been some serious upheaval ongoing in the NFL up to this point, with numerous jobs opening up, and now some of them closing, as we will get to. But here is where we stand as of right now, as far as where we are after this past weekend. And go ahead while I'm talking NFL, and the coaches just lead this up the entire time is fine. Brandon, thank you. But before we get into some of the coaching news, here's where we find ourselves and some of what's had an effect on the coaching world as well. Down to the Final Four, who will be playing in Santa Clara here in a couple of weeks. The Seahawks and the Rams on the NFC side, the Broncos and Patriots on the AFC side. CJ Stroud in that Texans performance, just like all-time awful stuff, or else maybe we're talking about the Texans pursuing their first title. Instead, Like, am I finding myself like kind of liking the Patriots? It's a very odd feeling. Drake May's a very likable guy, but it's still the Patriots. And I don't know if I still hate them.
Wash your mouth out with
I don't know
soap.
if I still hate them without Belichick and Brady. Am I supposed to still hate them? I don't know. It's a very conflicted feeling.
I really like Mike Vrabel. I always have. So I'm not in the same, please stop this from the Patriots from happening. But it's only been
a few
4
years.
years or 5 years, since Brady went to Tampa and all that. So we're not even in our period of where we can say, well, it's been long enough.
18, right?
Yeah.
2018.
Yeah. Has it been long enough?
I don't know. I don't feel like it has. It feels still a little bit too fresh, like almost like they haven't paid their penance like everybody else, where you have to go in cycles. Now they've not been great here of late, but they are pretty damn good now. Didn't take long to get back towards the mountaintop, and who the hell knows? They might be sitting on top of it when all is said and done after the way they got through the Texans. Now just 2 games remain potentially for the Patriots. But yes, it will up first be with a trip to Santa Clara on the line. Patriots and Broncos. The Broncos had a much I guess, different kind of a feel of a game, although still greatly benefited from turnovers by the opposing quarterback. That's for sure. A bit more of a thriller, though, having to go to overtime for them as they eke out that win at home against the Buffalo Bills. And then on the other side, you've got the Seahawks absolutely just kicked the crud out of the 49ers in a divisional matchup. And then the Rams eking one out in overtime, 2 OT out of the 4 games we saw this past weekend, but the Rams getting by in overtime in what was an absolute thriller, and turnovers big in that game as well. So what do you guys think of where we are right now as far as your interest level, as far as like, do you have a team you're hopping on the bandwagon for, as far as like any of the kind of construction of this thing at this point? What stands out to you about these final 4 teams?
Seahawks are beating the hell out of people. I know that. And they beat the 49ers in back-to-back games and humbled them. I don't have a dog in this. There's not like, I hope they win. It'll be interesting what Denver does without Nix, with Stidham starting. I don't have a team that if they win it, it's going to bother me. And I kind of like it that way. And I don't have a team that if they win it, I'll be okay. It doesn't matter.
My team was the Texans. I was going to jump on the Texans bandwagon. I was absolutely going to do that just because Jalen Petrie and I like D'Amico Ryans, but that's out of the cards now. So I look around and I've seen the Broncos. I've seen all these teams win one. We all have. So, yeah, I don't really have a dog. I don't have a favorite to really root for at this point.
Yeah, my team was the Bears. Amanda's from Chicago. I like Caleb Williams. I enjoy a brash head coach that swears.
F the Lions.
Yeah, all those different things. And I just would love to see it for the people of Chicago, which is a great sports town that I love to visit. But that ended last week. So I am now watching just as a casual observer.
I have the games on. And
bandwagon team. I have never rooted for a team from Houston for anything, but not saying that I won't. But it would have been rare if I had jumped on the bandwagon.
I normally don't like teams from Houston at all. Like I don't like the Astros. Don't really care about the rest of them, honestly. But yeah, if the Texans would have advanced, I think that would have been a pretty cool story just because their defense is so damn fun to watch. And like I said, Jalen Petrie's a very likable guy. A lot of guys on that team are. But yeah, it's a good Final Four for the TV networks, but they would just love that LA New England matchup in that Super Bowl if at all possible. I mean, that would be a massive number. I think any of the ways you were to split this pie, but certainly Rams, Patriots, Boston versus LA would probably be, I would think, the desired outcome by those in charge of the television network. So there you go with that. Here we are down to the nitty-gritty. We'll talk a bit more about that on Thursday.
If New England and L.A. play, you know what that's going to be like all week, right? That was Brady's first Super Bowl win.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was the greatest show on turf. Warner and the Rams with Falk and Bruce and who's the other receiver that was so good? Isaac Holt. Torrey Holt. They won it. And then by beating the Titans in the next year, that was Vinatieri kicked the field goal. Brady took over. And Craig, one of your former high school, not teammates, but a guy and Fred Coleman was on that team, won a Super Bowl and beat the Rams. And it was the first of what would be a ton.
Yeah, well, that was 2002, and Fred Coleman's about 10 years older than me.
Yeah,
by
no,
the
he
way.
was. No,
But,
he was actually older than
I mean,
that. Yeah.
Fred Coleman was probably not remembered a lot by most, maybe some UW fans out there or something. But yeah, he was a part of that first Patriots team, and yeah, that was all the way back in 2002. They beat so many teams for Super Bowls, I forgot the order of them and who they beat. Actually,
Couldn't beat the Giants. That's the one. They couldn't beat the Giants.
By the way, verdict on Tom Brady. Now deep into his broadcasting career at this point. What do y'all think?
I thought he got better.
I think he got better.
I think he got better. I think Romo slipped.
Has receded.
Maybe his last weekend, the game was okay. He's not the guy that was the genius who came popping out of the bottle. I think Brady's doing okay. I think Aikman has become maybe the lead along with Olsen, who I like listening to as an analyst as well.
J.J. Watt, fantastic.
I haven't really
J.J. Watt, if you get a J.J. Watt game, he's doing a really good job. I really, really enjoyed his work this year. Aikman, Olsen, J.J. Watt, the ones I think need a little bit of tweaking are Romo, whose personality I actually do enjoy. I think he's just a little further away from the game and maybe needs to change his prep methods and the balance between him and Nance a little bit. And Collinsworth, who's never going to change. It's just
I think Tony Romo needs to be hypnotized into not comparing everything to Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. That would be a good start. But no, I enjoy what I've heard from Brady, and we just haven't talked about that. So I was curious what y'all thought now. And yeah, he's quickly risen the ranks. Surprise, Tom Brady's good at something. But yeah, I would see where that storyline Rams Patriots, he could be a major part of that if that's in fact the meeting. Meanwhile, these Final Four teams standing don't need head coaches, obviously, but there are a lot of teams out there that do, and there's some that have already found theirs, and there's some that have found theirs. It was a dream scenario, and they've already tried to turn it into some drama. Looking at you, New York Giants, who have hired John Harbaugh as their new head coach in the last few days. But he's already having to put out fires in the New York media because there was a discrepancy on how much say he has versus how much say the GM has. And now they're having to go back and forth as well, yeah, he's got say, but it's not like it's totally just his final word. And then he's having to say, well, yeah, I've got final say, but it's, and all I can think of, that's just New York media at its finest. Welcome to New York, John Harbaugh. This is a great way to introduce you, is to have some never-ending headlines over some silly stuff that is not all that important at the moment, but you can see where the power struggle is going to be a storyline early on for the New York media. Who's actually in power? Is it Harbaugh or is it the GM?
And then you have Daboll, who was at the Giants, who now could be going to Buffalo. So he's not leaving, maybe. Wouldn't that be weird? He's hovering over what's going on with New York, the state, and New Jersey as far as football.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would do that Daboll thing if I'm Buffalo.
I don't really see the appeal.
I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't get.
Well, he can coach in the.
He's
cold.
in the same state, according to you.
Well, I know he worked with Josh Allen before and all those things, but you get dig a little deeper.
That might be Buffalo. A Josh Allen decision.
I feel like you've decided to move on from Sean McDermott after all this time. You can kick the tires a little while longer. But the point is, John Harbaugh's already in the New York headlines, and they're just being typical New York media, trying to create issues wherever they can. So we'll see how they put out these early, very small fires. But he's the man now for the G-men. Kevin Stefanski, the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, after being fired by the Cleveland Browns. He was interviewed by a few different teams. Also the Miami Dolphins, making the move with Jeff Hafley, former Packers defensive coordinator, first time now head coach. That was announced yesterday. And the Titans, the fourth team to have hired a coach at this point, picking up Robert Saleh, bringing him over from the 49ers to replace Brian Callahan, and then eventually interim Mike McCoy, who coached most of the season actually for Tennessee. But Robert Saleh back in the big chair after a little bit of time, very successful time with the 49ers. And so there's your four hires so far. Any thoughts on any of the four?
Robert Saleh is an upgrade. I'm not sure his ownership group will ever get out of his way. It would be nice if the Strunk Adams family maybe sold that team. I just don't think that they've proven any good.
You almost sometimes forget they're there.
Yeah.
Not Adams, but the Titans.
Yeah. I think that's because of them. They're getting a new stadium, so they needed a coach with some And he's going to have a better situation than having Aaron Rodgers forced on him and the Johnson family in New York, they're just nuts when it comes to NFL ownership. So he's got a better situation, even with the owners that I'm middle of the road on at best. I think Kevin Stefanski, I really like Raheem Morris. I just don't think maybe he's an NFL head coach. But I think Kevin Stefanski is an upgrade there. It'll be interesting to see what he can do with Michael Penix Jr. for the next year or so. And then Jeff Hafley in Miami, I'm interested in it. I think he was doing a good job at Boston College before he decided I'm not in the NIL game. If I'm going to have to pay players, I might as well go to the NFL. He did a very good job as the Packers DC. He knows how to be the head man of a program. We'll see if he can do it in Miami. But also I think the ownership there is, while committed, I don't think is easy to keep on a path.
Well, those are the 4 jobs that have been filled. So that leaves the Arizona Cardinals still with an open job, the Baltimore Ravens, the Buffalo Bills, the Cleveland Browns, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, all still needing to hire head coaches coming up. So we'll see where the dominoes fall as far as all that goes. Meanwhile, a baseball note just of note because of who the player is, but big time decision made over in the NL and has effects on the AL as well, as Bo Bichette, former Toronto Blue Jay, linked to possibly be heading to Philadelphia instead, making the move to the Northeast and to the same division, but for the New York Mets. 2-time All-Star shortstop, agreed with the Mets to the tune of $126 million over 3 years. Phillies fans just apoplectic about not landing Bichette. And God, the lineup would have been absolutely insane. But big free agency move in baseball. And one of my favorite players to watch in baseball the last few years has been Bo Bichette. So don't love it with the Mets because I just they're automatically turn off the TV, which is a stupid thing to say. Normally somebody like me would kiss the ass of the Mets for the New York market, kind of like you see a lot of times on shows like this. The fandom gets the rub from the host, but I'm not going to do that here. I don't like the Mets. I don't like him going to the Mets. But I hope he has a lot of success for their sake. I'm not rooting against them. It's just not a team I'm I'm entertained by all that often. And I always feel like half their headlines are always just the messiness of the Mets a lot of the time.
Yeah, I'm not a Mets guy. I was hoping he'd go to the Red Sox, but I mean, who are we kidding? They like to pretend now, although they've been doing some interesting things to the pitching staff. But Bo Bichette was a big one. Kyle Tucker to the Dodgers was a gut punch as well. I would have rather seen both of them go to the Mets and at least make that team a little more interesting as opposed to just one go to the Mets. The Phillies really wanted Bo Bichette too. Their GM today said it was a gut punch that he came over there because they thought he really fit their clubhouse well. And he probably does. The Phillies have a great clubhouse. But the Mets just never know what they're doing.
It seems like they get great players, but they just never can put it all quite together. So he's a great player. It's a huge pickup for them. And, yeah, the Phillies were bummed out about that. But baseball is going on despite all of the headlines being taken by football and also basketball now at this point as well. So final thing for you here, just wanted thoughts on Bo Bichette. He's an incredible player. But later on tonight, just running through Big 12 men's basketball because there is a full slate to mention, and you can just throw in your 2 cents on any of what's going on right now. But you got later on this evening, number 9 Iowa State hosting UCF at 6 on CBS Sports Network, TCU, OSU, 7 on ESPN+, Tech at Baylor at 8 o'clock over on Peacock, and then Utah at K-State on CBS Sports Network, and finally in the nightcap, number 19 KU, sans Bill Self, who after a medical scare will not be coaching tonight. Apparently everything's okay, but he's not going to be coaching this evening. The Jayhawks are in Boulder to take on the Buffaloes with a late 10 Central tip-off time over on ESPN. So if you want some late-night basketball, you got it, and that's just the Big 12. Just kind of wanted to throw that out there in case there's anything you guys wanted to touch on as far as the league race right now and all that's going on.
Well, I do think this is Bill Self's last year. I think they've got this big house they built in Florida, and I think Mrs. Self is going to tell him, I don't want to live in that house alone. And I think that he needs to start
Amanda has never really liked to live by herself. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah. She's going to love that. She's going to love that you said that. But yeah, I think that they're, it's going to be interesting to see Jacques Vaughn interim for however long he is, for the next game or two, do that. I hope that Bill is okay. I especially hope he is, because we are going to the big Monday game on February 22nd or so at Fog Allen Fieldhouse. So I'd like Bill Self to be there and coaching the game, because it may be the last time that Amanda and Rami get to see him coach live. So in the game before he retires. So I do think that that's coming, though, and I think he'd be foolish not to consider it.
This is getting to be, I forgot who it was that mentioned Kleiman. You could kind of see, I don't know if that, but he does seem to have about one or two instances each season the last couple of years. He looked like he's lost a lot of weight, looks good, but if you have something that's going on with whatever it is, a ticker or whatever else, it's a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it's his decision. I mean, I think his body's kind of saying, I think you're going to retire soon, pal. And you don't really have much of a say in it. I feel like we're kind of reaching that point now when you've had multiple hospital trips and fears for your overall health. By the way, we didn't mention it at all, but a hell of a game between BYU and Tech the other night in basketball. That was excellent stuff. And Tech able to pull away and win by double digits, but it was not that, like, the final score didn't tell you the way the game went, right? Like, that was one of those where, Tech beat them by like 13 points. They kicked their ass. Like, no, they didn't. Like, it was a hell of a game, though. I'm not sure how much y'all laid eyes on it.
I watched a lot of it, back and forth between the NFL playoff game and that. But at the end of the game, which we watched the whole end of it, I was fascinated to see Tech take advantage of every break that they got towards the end and build that 13 points and build on the crowd. But, man, BYU, both those teams, I wouldn't want to play them at all.
Well, Tech
is good. Both of them are damn good. Yeah.
Tech is in Waco tonight, right, against Baylor.
Just said that, yep.
Yeah, Grant McCaslin, if they're close at the end, you good chance they're going to end up winning it. With 6 teams, isn't it? 5 teams ranked in the top 13. Arizona, Houston, Tech, BYU, and Iowa State's lost a couple of games, but very, very, very interesting at the top of the standings.
Yeah, it looked like BYU was going to run away with that game with a little bit of time left. Started to build a little bit of a lead, and then Tech came back. And I know that's when you get into the weeds of the officiating and we can and all that stuff. But it was a great game and 2 really powerful brands at the moment when it comes to just the league itself, but also football and men's basketball. And we'll see how the rest of the sports go. But there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
All right. Thank you very much. When we come back, he was in studio with us earlier in the day, the new AD at Baylor, Doug McNamee, on many things of what he looks at, sees, trying to fix, and also trying to just grab onto. He's next. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marco's Pizza, the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Go online, marcos.com. Pizza lovers get it and get whatever favorite pizza you want. There's always specials. And mine, of course, I've said this a lot, large, thin crust, all meat pizza. And I love it. And they also have sandwiches and wings and much more. And Bob Mock owns 5 locations in Waco. 5 locations that wasn't, but just a handful of years ago, there was none, because they are the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Go to marcos.com. Specials always there for you to call in, pick up, or have delivered to you at marcos.com. Director of Athletics, Doug McNamee, in studio with us, 365 Sports, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and David Smoak. So I asked you earlier, before we went on the air, how many meetings are you in? What is the biggest challenge? That's kind of a generic question, but really you have so much going on. What is the biggest challenge right now for you that you want to have even closure and an answer in the next month?
I mean, biggest challenge for me right now is to what you spoke of, which is just hours in the day in terms of being able to get to as much as I want to, both in terms of external constituents and internal constituents. It's just a matter of how much I can get in. As far as a specific item that you're speaking of in terms of what's most pressing, I think it's consumption of both all the external factors and all the things that are happening nationally and how they impact Baylor athletics, and just where we stand currently. What's our state, so that we know how to address and what the needs are moving forward, how to address that best moving forward. I think consumption and soaking that in, absorbing it, so we're in a position to move pretty quick, is kind of the most pressing and urgency in terms of the day-to-day for me right now.
Doug, I've known you as a guy who, when I first met you, you were in athletics. Like, you were in that for the whole time I knew you. And then for the last several years, you've been outside of that. And you and I have had, conversations as friends about different things you observe as a fan. And it does change your perspective when you're not working in it every day. Sure. And you get to see it from another side of it as just a fan. How much has that maybe been revealed to you a little bit more in this last month and a half where you've had this job?
Yeah, when I left college athletics, I thought that might be the end for me in college athletics, and I thought, and I was okay with that. I was content with that being the outcome, and I think that what I recognized over the last few months is that had I not left college athletics, had I stayed there for the next 7 years, whether I had been a candidate or not, I can promise would not be nearly prepared to understand the dynamics that exist right now. And I think that's a balance of both having the business experience and in two different stints with two kind of different variables that were at play. But I think it was also a big part of me being just a fan. For forever, it was growing up, caring a lot about Baylor, coming to Baylor as a student, then went straight into working essentially for Baylor straight out of college, even while I was in college. So I never really understood the variables and the dynamics of actually being a fan. I think the last 7 years helped give me perspective of, especially as you start to have kids and the priorities of life, just balancing that, understanding what our fans have to balance on a daily basis. And that as much as we want Baylor to be front and center, there's a bunch of different variables, and we need to work hard to consistently earn their attention and their trust. And I think that the last 7 years was dual beneficial for me, both on the experience itself, but having a step away and getting a greater perspective as it relates to Baylor athletics and athletics as a whole.
So I noticed one of the first things you guys did was put together a pretty thorough questionnaire for fans to fill out on game day experience and buying tickets and everything imaginable. How do you pour through all that information, and how important was it to go directly to the fans and be like, hey, we want to hear from you guys. We want to make sure you're part of this. Sure. Because I don't think at times maybe they felt that way all the time.
Yeah. Craig, I think you're referring to just a post-event survey, and I think that's actually something that's been in place for a while, but I'm glad you brought it up, because I think that's how we do that specifically, for example, is something that is incredibly important for us to study and analyze and ensure that we're asking the right questions, and that we're not only asking the questions, but then we get the information that we're going to work to show that we care enough to ask the question, hear people out. I would tell you that's a perfect example of something I think historically that has been done, but I think there is an opportunity for us to step that up a level in terms of the method. There's great resources on campus with groups that focus on that survey process and how to capture that. And so I would tell you that is a point of emphasis for us moving forward is to capture that information, but then more importantly, once you have that information, put it to work, because nothing is more frustrating from a fan experience standpoint than to say, hey, I offered up feedback. You asked for feedback, offered up feedback, and it's clear you didn't do anything with it. That makes that person apathetic, less inclined to share that in the future. And so I would say that is a great example of something where I think it's been happening, but I think we haven't. Even maybe the survey you're referring to, I don't think we've made an impact or we've made changes in that space enough to where I would say, hey, I've had an influence on it, but it will be a point of emphasis for us moving forward, just because I think that process is so critical.
I've heard that this is just watching. I'm not a Baylor alum, none of that. We cover it like a disconnect at times between the fan base and the administration or athletics, whatever it might be, whether it's tailgating. I know you've discussed that. Or whether it's like if they want to block out, then the fans want to do a stripe. They want to stripe out. They want to do all white. It just seemed like everyone argues with each other. And maybe that's normal, but it seems like it's more here than anywhere else. Have you recognized that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't probably speak to comparison because it's all I know in terms of fan bases. But I think in the defense of our fans, I think we have to acknowledge that we've put them through a lot. They've been through a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, you guys as media understand it, and you can attest to it. I feel like our fans have gone on an emotional roller coaster. I think, I said probably proportionally in terms of great moments, like peaks, we've probably had more than our fair share. When you think about the national championships and just the epic moments that we've experienced as a fan base. And then I'd say proportionally, there's no doubt we've put them through hard days, more so than probably the average fan base. Moments where we just, have disappointed them and just been where we've had to have a full reset. And so, Smokey, I would just say, like, we have to acknowledge, like, that emotional roller coaster has taken its toll. And our fans, especially of late, I think have when you use the word disconnect, I think there's moments where just in terms of our engagement, having nothing to do with wins and losses on the field, that I think we've been short-sighted in the way that we listen to them and engage them and meet them where they're at. And then I don't think there's any question, our success of late hasn't been where we want it to be consistently across all sports, where I think we've set expectations for them. So all of that combined creates what I think the culture and the climate is. And I think that's going to be relevant sometimes everywhere. But I think it's fair to say here, it feels like it's a little bit more intense than what you might experience somewhere else.
When you left, NIL was not a thing. There was not revenue sharing, none of that. Now it is the very true reality of things that has created a lot of chaos, although a lot of good things in college athletics. But as an athletic director, your mandate is building winning programs and successful students and all these things. Do you feel it's kind of a good news, bad news situation in that, okay, now we kind of know, even though it's a little bit rumored, that the teams that win have this kind of budget aside for players. So we can either get there, get close, or we have to strategically know that in 2025 and 2026, we can be close. In 2027 is where we can make our move. Or is it more of a, how can we do this so that we don't have to go year to year saying, do we have the money to compete with the other people in the Big 12, with other people nationally?
Yeah. So I start, with my own personal reflections and I would say journey as it relates to NIL. And I will tell you that it's been an evolving mindset for me personally, even before the job became an opportunity that was even relevant for me. And I, initially my gut intuition was, man, this is bad. And this is going to be the end. And this is really going to be a negative outcome. And the more I thought about, more I reflected is, as athletic departments, because of the way the rules previously existed, you saw, I don't want to use the word excessive, but you saw a lot of resources that were dumped everywhere around the student athlete, but to the student athlete, in the form of facilities, in the form of headcount for just support, where it almost at times was just, it felt egregious and excessive. And it was institutions' way of trying, that clearly had a surplus of money, and we're trying to enhance the experience by doing everything but give the money to the student athlete. I think the reality of this current era is that the student athlete said enough. Like, it's clear there's excess money that's here. We would rather be compensated. You don't use the word compensated. That creates other challenges, but we'd rather receive the benefits that we deserve directly, rather than what feels like this end around game. And so, I think the House settlement in many ways, as I spoke to, like, it makes sense. These student athletes are helping to earn these massive television contracts. And so when we talk about the funding necessary from that on the university side, the easy way to say is that money that's funding that is coming via these television contracts that there's no doubt these student athletes are helping to make possible. So I think from a personal standpoint, my own mindset has shifted to understand it. And I certainly wish there were aspects of it that were a little bit more in a controlled capacity, but I understand it. As far as where do we stand in our capacity to be competitive? First answer is we have those resources, and we will continue to have those resources. And I think there's a lot of misinformation that exists in this space. It's in most people's interest to inflate the numbers as much as they possibly can. If you think about it, who benefits from the numbers being inflated? There's a lot of upside associated with it, and there's not a whole lot of benefit at this point for truth and for actuals for being reported. And so, to some degree, the biggest challenge that exists here is that nobody has a central understanding of what truth is and where there's exact precise numbers, and how do you benchmark against those. So even my perspective is somewhat absent of the full level of knowledge, but I will tell you, we're very competitive now, and yet we've got a significant amount of room, I think, for us to go to get where I think we ultimately can and should be. And so I think we're competitive right now to be successful in the Big 12 conference, certainly to have impact on more of a national level. I think there's enhancement and work for us to do collectively.
So the Big 12 itself is quite different from when you were last here. Yeah. I mean, you commented we had a BYU helmet laying around here, and you talked about the great fan base that they have. How much crossover familiarity do you even have with a lot of the other leaders in the league? And just kind of what do you think of the makeup now of this league, surviving death like 3 times over and turning into what it's now turned into, this 16-team league all over the country?
Yeah, I think the greatest strength for this league is the parity. I mean, if you look at the best, pro sports leagues, NFL is a perfect example. I mean, look at the favorites to be in the Super Bowl. If you take the favorites next week and it's the Seahawks and it's the Patriots, both those programs and both those teams a couple years ago were in the basement, and it shows the ability to move quick up and down as you do the right things. And I think the Big 12 has that going for it, where you've got a lot of parity and a lot of pretty equally resourced schools. I'm really impressed with the conference. I've had good conversations with Commissioner Yormark. I love his innovation. We've got some similar background just coming from the outside. I'm really excited. The AD at BYU has somewhat of a similar story in terms of a long time, alum and someone that worked in the department that has been familiar with the university for a long time. And so I know Brian, have a lot of respect for him and the work that they're doing. I think there's been great additions to the conference, and yet a lot of the same stable relationships that Baylor's had for a long period of time are in existence here. So I'm bullish on the conference and its makeup. And I will tell you, through conversations with the commissioner, he's been pretty blunt in saying that, hey, Baylor needs to be at its best for us to do what we need to do as it relates to this next go around of conference realignment. And no pressure, but we're counting on you guys. We need you to be a prominent part of our negotiations and value as it relates to this next media contract. And I that's a responsibility, but it's an honor. And I think we'll be well positioned to do that. But I like our conference makeup. And I like the variety that we have at play. Obviously football, it's strong. Basketball is off the charts. I mean, I think there's times where I'd like to change the conference dynamic a little bit when you're in the throes of playing top 10 teams every week. But I'm actually very excited about this conference and the opportunity to get to meet some of these ADs that I haven't spent much time with.
Baylor has a lot of names on buildings, stadiums, arenas, whatever, and it seems like they're almost all the same. Drayton McLean, Fudge, Foster, Eddie Williams, John Eddie Williams, Bob Simpson, of course. I don't know if he's involved in football any much because he was upset 10 years ago. Drayton McLean Jr., obviously. Is there enough new blood for you to find that has reached out, or you reached out to them? Because these donors can only do so much no matter how much they have as far as in their bank account.
Yes, there is. This is an institution that has produced numerous highly successful entrepreneurs. And I will tell you, there's a new wave of wealth and generous wealth that are interested in supporting. And all those guys you mentioned, Smokey, all those guys continue to support. And I know there's been some history, but I've had the chance to speak to most, if not all of them. Mm-hmm. And I think that, those guys have certainly done their part. Those families have done their part and more, but, I can't tell you how many times Drayton has asked me, how can I help? How can I help? And so I would just tell you that we are, in terms of alumni size, we have to acknowledge we're not one of the biggest in the Big 12. You talk about alumni, just population across the country, and Baylor's always going to be towards the bottom of that just because of its school size. And so it's very important for us not to lose people out of the equation, to unify, to keep everybody going in the right direction. And so working hard to earn that trust of the legends who have already done a lot for us is important, but there is a next wave of people who are active, who are ready to step up, who are already stepping up, that I would say we're well positioned.
Paul, if you don't mind, the Learfield, Playfly, some of the partners of universities and broadcast partners are starting to get involved with NIL and all that. How has that changed the dynamic with those being involved? You, of course, are attached to Playfly.
Yeah, we're a Playfly school, and we're proud of that partnership. I started in that space.
Mm-hmm.
I started the 3-letter acronyms: ISP, IMG. I mean, Learfield IMG. It's hard to keep track with all the movement that occurred there. But I started my career in that space, so I learned a lot about it. And I would just say that that they're certainly a part of the equation. When you think about external NIL in its truest form, it's for-profit businesses looking to take advantage of the name, image, and likeness of a student athlete in exchange for benefits to promote their business. And so who holds and manages most of those relationships for a school? It's the multimedia rights holder. So you've got to have a very synergetic relationship there. College sports is unique in the sense that you've got a couple companies that have control of pretty much the whole industry. And that's a unique dynamic, because if you look at pro sports, it doesn't exist like that. It's almost unheard of, to my knowledge. Maybe there's some exceptions, but for the most part, these pro sports teams, they have their own in-house MMR teams. And so I think with that comes some greater level of flexibility. But I would say that, Playfly is eager to come alongside with us, and already has, and will continue to support us. That's a relationship I'm eager to dive in more and understand and figure out where do we take advantage of it in the greatest capacity, because, Playfly represents a lot of schools. So if they're supporting us, they're most likely supporting other schools that we're competing against in a similar capacity. That dynamic is just a little bit of a unique variable, which you don't see in the pro model. And now that name, image, and likeness is relevant in college sports, it creates, I think, an interesting dynamic to further study.
You step into I'll call it a different type of situation with football right off the bat. A lot of heat from the outside on Dave Aranda and the performance the last couple of years and all of that. And that makes your job more difficult, because you do have him for at least another year until, you see how all these different offseason moves work. Was it a maybe weird benefit to you to not have to come in and hire a football coach right away so that you could get maybe more of the lay of the land?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly would say I have an understanding and clarity on our president's decision and what was associated with that, and support it. And I think it does, candidly sets the year up well for us to do an analysis on the state of the program, trajectory, where we're going. Dave is very aware of the need to improve the product that was on the field. And I am very aware of that as the head of the department, but I'm very aware of our department's responsibility to improve everything that happened off the field, and make a better experience. And so I think that as you look at the 26 season, I'm excited about the momentum from the portal. And I believe there's a lot of positive momentum associated with the program directly that has me optimistic. But here's what I'll tell you: we'll be ready as a department to further support this program, to make sure that it's in best possible position, and help this staff further along to go where we need to go. And ultimately, if it's not the right spot, we've got to make pivots and changes. I think we'll have ample time and be well prepared to do so. But that certainly is not the first objective. The first objective is to do everything we can possible to ensure that the current leadership over there is the most successful.
So do you feel, and I think this is true for most, like in the NFL, when I see a quarterback fail, I almost don't blame a quarterback in any regard, because you can point out 100 different things that the organization and the coaching staff could have done around him. In college, it kind of trickles down that way a little bit, in that if a coach is struggling but he's had success before, you almost, before you assess him, you have to assess you first, right?
Yeah, there's a lot goes into it. To what you're asking, Paul, I think you're alluding to what's the structure that's been put in place, and have we done our job to ensure that the best possible structure around the program is there to give them the maximum chance to be successful. And certainly now more than ever, with NIL and rev share, there are absolutely factors that we have on the department side, as opposed to the program side, have more that we have to shape and influence to give our program the best possible chance to be successful. That's an analysis that's ongoing that I think we have to assess and look at and see. And I think, I've talked about it with our team. Everything is on the table for consideration, for us to look at and make these determinations. Does this make sense for us to keep doing or not? And I would say the same is true for each individual program, and football is obviously at the forefront of everybody's mind. But to what you said, like is everything that's around the football program in the best possible shape to give that program the opportunity to be most successful? And I think that's a simultaneous analysis as the program itself is preparing for the season.
What have you been asked most about, do you think, so far?
I mean, football's been pretty high on the list, understandably. Football comes up quite a bit. I would say, I hear a lot about the game time starts in the fall, and I relate to that, having, little kids and going to games in the summer, September, and feeling the heat. A lot of, I'd say, aspects around the football experience. So tailgating is a frequent question. Uniforms is up on the high list of questions as well.
Yeah.
And so, all of those, I think, there's a lot. There's not one that I'd say, hey, this is the dominant question, but those are what I would say tips to the top.
Dude, would you say that when it comes to that tailgating, alcohol sales, I know I've seen that thrown around
that's
everywhere.
Been quite a bit asked. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that all on, hey, everything's on the table and we're looking at it all and we'll get there when we get there, but kind of anything and everything people can think of, you're mulling it over right now, right?
I referenced this in another conversation, and I mean it genuinely. Like, what I want to create is this dynamic at our leadership team table where, there's really an advocate in multiple cases. One case, I have a gentleman who's responsible to advocate on behalf of the student athlete. And that job is to come and to argue on behalf of that student athlete in this group and be that ally. In the same regard, I have someone on our table who is responsibility, and I use the word, is to radically advocate on behalf of the fan. And nothing should be a sacred cow or should be off the table for consideration. And certainly there's checks and balances that have to play in terms of the financial realities and the economics that we have to face. But let's not assume anything. Let's think about this from a whole different perspective. And if we're really prioritizing our fans' interests, what's up for discussion? And that's a muscle you have to kind of work at, is that there's a natural inclination where I think there's a ability just not to think about something like, there's no way we'd ever do that, or, well, I wouldn't even think that would be on the table. You guys have experienced that in the way that you communicate. The media exists in this day and age, and everything is a completely different approach. And so I think same thing is true in terms of that fan experience. I feel like there's a lot of credit to Banana Ball, Savannah Bananas, and what they've done. But I do think there's a moment that we're on the verge of, and I hope that we as a department are a leader in that regard, where there's an intentionality of approaching the passion for a program, and specifically for teams, from a fan's perspective that doesn't currently exist. And the only way you can do that is if you really get to know that, understand it, fight for that perspective, and also take a long-term approach. Because if it's all about, hey, what's the quickest way to make a buck, it's going to have a much different outcome than it's, hey, let's play the long game here. We may miss a couple of dollars in this particular equation to garner from the fan, but if that generates a donation of 5 figures down the road, was it worth it? Can you play that mindset? And I think that's the approach that I'm really challenging our department to think through.
You mentioned that now that you're in this seat, that you understand perhaps the decisions of retaining Dave Aranda. When Dr. Livingstone released the statement about why, and they would, as a fan, and not knowing if you'd been contacted yet as an AD prospect, did you agree with that decision at that time?
Yeah, I knew there was a lot to it. And I knew that there was, I think I had a perspective, even not even at all in the mix, of just understanding that there was a lot that went into that decision. And I don't think you can underscore the importance of a decision like that as it relates to what it means for a program and for an athletic department for a long range time. And I think to rush a decision like that at a point where there was a lot of activity both within the university and externally, it wouldn't have been the right call. And I respect the president for her desire to want to get an athletic director in there, to empower an athletic director to help guide and ultimately make an analysis and make a decision on that. I think that's a testament to her. And so, as I further understand it, I believe what's ahead for us. I'm pretty optimistic the way this thing sets up for us. And I can tell you this: we're going to leave this. We're going to go into the 26 football season with hope, and we're going to leave the 26 football season with hope.
Doug, how often in your other jobs have you hired and fired people?
Often. I mean, it's a regular part of the for-profit, world. And it's the hardest thing. I would always say if it becomes easy to do, you don't have a heart. And if it ever becomes, something where you can't actually do it, you just aren't cut out for the role of leadership. It should be difficult. It should take an emotional toll on you. At the same time, you need to be prepared to do it.
If I brought out a color wheel of green and gold and showed administration and the fans, do you think that would maybe illustrate some of that disconnect we talked about? Because it does, like, outside of alcohol sales and tailgating, it is the thing that friends of mine who are Baylor fans are, I wouldn't say complain the most about, but are confused about.
Well, here's what I would tell you. Having brand consistency and cohesiveness to your color pattern is reflective of a good, strong consumer brand. And having nostalgia and appreciation and affection for a color scheme that may not exist anymore is also reasonable as well, too. Those aren't mutually exclusive. And I don't know the answer. I don't mean to be evasive and tell you, hey, we're changing it. I look at the helmet behind you and I just say, hey, there's cohesiveness. That is a color. The gold BU that's on there is the same BU that's on the field. And it does mean something to have that consistency across the board. And yet at the same time, it was watching some of the highlights from DJ's dad, Derek, just seeing that old school, that was late 90s uniform, but that green and old school, Vegas gold helmet, which just kind of, that's when it fired it up a little bit in me as well too. So I will tell you, both can be true. Both can be true. What does that mean? How do we address that? How do we solve that? I don't think we have enough. I don't have enough insight or knowledge at this point to be able to tell you something as specific as what we'll do, if anything, on that front. But I'm definitely sensitive to the emotion and the passion associated with it. And I'm also, as somebody that loves and obsesses over the study of brands and their effectiveness, can also appreciate consistency and cohesiveness.
Doug McNamee, Baylor Director of Athletics, with us in studio. Appreciate your time. You mentioned Derek Lagway when he played. Why did it take so long from the commitment? I know there was a visit to Oxford. Yeah. I understand it can be complicated with previous agreements where he was at Florida. Yeah. But it seemed as if it took forever when some players visit, they agree, they commit next day. Why did that take so long to get a signature?
Yeah, I think a couple things. First of all, let's not forget we're not recently left the era of when verbal commitments happen and you didn't have signatures on paper for calendar purposes, obviously, but for years. And so I think we're in this immediate gratification period where it's like it's supposed to happen immediately. I can tell you that I had a chance to see DJ when he was there. And he talked about the loyalty to stay at Willis High School. I'm sure he had a lot of opportunities to explore elsewhere. And I wasn't physically there for when he made his verbal commitment, but I was pretty clear that when it was a commitment, and it turned out to be exactly that. I wouldn't discount the fact this is a much longer process than just quickly signing an NIL agreement. A National Letter of Intent, which is what I was referring to. So NLI agreement. Right. Too many 3-letter acronyms going around here. But that's a pretty clean, easy document to sign. And now it's gotten much, much more complicated in the world of revenue share and NIL. And so I would just say that it was clear to us that DJ was committed, and ultimately we're glad that the official word came down, I guess, this weekend that had been finalized.
How much of an adrenaline rush, and he's got to go play. Coach Spavital's got to get him set up to be successful, and who else? How much of an adrenaline rush do you think that gave the Baylor fan base and athletic department?
A wise man who may have a building, name on a building around here, gave me some good advice. And he said the two most important words in life are hope and tomorrow. And I would say that DJ and really a lot of guys we've signed and a lot of guys we've kept gives us hope for tomorrow. And I will tell you, I had a brief conversation with him. And not that it's any way relatable, but just talking about my dream growing up was to serve Baylor as an athletic director. That was the dream for me. His dream to grow up was play at quarterback at Baylor. And for a while there, it didn't look like I went a different direction. It didn't look like it was going to ever happen. And I was okay with that. And ultimately, God had a different plan and it came full circle. And so I think it was an interesting moment for me just to share that story and say, hey, you dreamed of this and it looked like you were going to go a different route, and that's okay. And it was part of the plan. And here's a chance for it to all come full circle and come back home. And it's, for someone who's on the other side of it, it's a heck of a feeling. It's intrinsic in a way I can't describe. And I know he feels that right now. I know he grew up seeing those pictures with his dad and sitting on the lap. And I know that there's a powerful emotion inside of him, and he's very excited to be here. And I'll just tell you, I think he reflects so many good things for us as a student athlete. He's a good kid, a really, really good kid, well-respected teammate. I'm just excited for him to put on the jersey and all of the student athletes that'll be a part of that team in 26. I think there's a lot of momentum for us, and DJ certainly at the front of that.
Craig?
I don't know when we'll talk to you again, so I wanted to squeeze us
Hopefully
in here.
soon.
Yeah, I hope so. But I don't like always doing like the college football, college athletics. It's crazy. Like it is though. It is crazy, but you're kind of returning to it now and getting your feet wet. But do you have any kind of big picture? This is what I think this way should be, and this is how it should go. Like we need to go get a CBA. We need to do this. Just kind of where's your head at on the big picture of where we are right now?
Yeah, I don't mean to evade your question, Craig, but I'll tell you, for me, I certainly will have probably some thoughts when I have a greater understanding of maybe what potential solutions can look like. Right now, my sole focus is this is the framework which we have to work within, and how do we, Baylor University, maximize it? And I've heard some good ideas. I saw Jeremiah Dickey's tweet had a lot of smart ideas. And I think there's some thought leaders out there that are saying some interesting, in some cases, a lot of them are really intelligent ideas. I also think you have to think about like what's their perspective and where's their particular bias to shape why that might be advantageous for the seat that they're in. But I would just tell you, I'm not ignoring that, but I care right now about how do I best position Baylor within the moment. And I think that is what's asked and required of me. And I certainly looking at tomorrow and how we best prepare for tomorrow, but it feels like anything much more than that, it's probably going to look a lot different than what it is today or tomorrow anyway. So what I want us to do is be prepared for today and tomorrow, and then be in a position where we're mobile, where we're nimble, and we can move and pivot wherever this thing ultimately goes. I care about it a lot. So I certainly hope that the powers that be that have the influence to shape it from the top level down, do everything it possibly can to continue to protect it and allow it to be what I know we all have grown to love for. But right now that focus for me is less on the national scene from a solution standpoint, and it's more about how do we best position Baylor in the current moment.
Last question is, how do you keep emotions out of decision making, and yet that's part of life. That's who you have to. That you mentioned, if you can't fire somebody, then you're not in a leadership position, or you shouldn't be.
Right.
And so how do you? Are you an emotional decision maker? How would you describe that to us?
Yeah, I mean, I will say it kind of struck home for me the weekend that my announcement came out. It was a Saturday morning where that news started to move out, and the men's team was playing at Memphis. If you guys remember that day, and I was trying to proactively reach out to all of our head coaches before the news got out, and I was trying to communicate with my previous employer, our investors, and our team there. And so I was working the phones aggressively all morning, and the game came on, and it's probably been the least amount of time I've watched a Baylor men's basketball game in a long time. And I happened to get back to the TV, and I had an idea it was close, and had the last 4 minutes of the game. And I got back to the TV just in time to watch the last 4 minutes of the game. And I watched the first 4 minutes as the athletic director at Baylor. And it was like a surreal emotion and feeling. And I'll tell you, it meant more. Like the blood in my body started to ramp up in a way in watching it, because it was relatively close down the stretch. And I felt a kind of a crazy feeling that almost goes back to the early years of passion. And at the same time, I realized, okay, you've got to moderate this, and you've got to think, more about not riding the waves of emotion of an individual game, and think about the context of the larger purpose and the mission of the department and an individual program. And I think that was a good moment for me just to get fired up, and also to moderate myself. And I will tell you, like the competitive juices burn. I'm still trying to figure out where in in the facilities is best for me to watch the game, where I can get fired up and get excited and kind of hide a little bit and watch the game as a fan. And sometimes the road games are probably most enjoyable because I'll sit in a room by myself and watch the TV and provide my own commentary in real time while I'm watching the game. But I think this is a circumstance that requires, moderation, sensibility, and thinking through and not getting too worked up about one game, specifically these sports that have, dozens of games as part of their season. Men's basketball, women's basketball, great examples. The emotions of one loss can take its toll, but then you think about the totality of a 35, 40 game season. When you factor in postseason, it's one game.
Good luck. Appreciate you. Welcome back. And thanks for being a part of it. We'll see you again soon. Doug McNamee, Baylor's Director of Athletics, with us on 365 Sports.
During the Start Something New sales event at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Waco. Drive a new Ram 1500 Lone Star Crew Cab with $13,000 off, or choose 0% financing. Get a new Laramie Crew Cab 4-wheel drive with 3.9% financing for 72 months, plus $15,000 off MSRP. Explore in a new Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, starting at $31,990. Happening now at Allen Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Flag and Anthem. Scan our QR. Fuck. There I go. Okay, here we go. I saw the QR code in the screen and I got confused. I'm only smart for like 10 seconds at a time. Yeah. Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by our good friends at Flag and Anthem. Go to flagandanthem.com, use our promo code 365sports for a discount at checkout. Let's talk about what's next for Indiana. If you're an Indiana fan, I am going to give you the tour, the guide to being a championship program. I know it very well. My team has won 3 national titles. It's been since 2013, but I know this. Garrett's team has won 3 national titles. We are familiar with what you're going to be going through now that you've tasted the sweet, sweet nectar of that title. And a 16-0, something that's only been done by Yale before Cars, is unbelievable. So yours tastes even sweeter than most. It's really unbelievable what you've done. And salute to you, Indiana, once again before we end the show. But let's go through what's next for you. Number 5, being the hunted. If you don't recognize this as Big Buck Hunter, you've never been to a sports bar. But you are now the hunted. The rest of the Big Ten hates you, maybe for the first time. Because you were in the background and just kind of there as a football program for so long, until the last 2 years, Ohio State, Michigan State, like the old guard Big Ten teams, have thought very little about you. If you beat them, they get pissed about it and they move on. Now, they will straight up hate you. You have, especially to Ohio State and Michigan, stepped on their turf of being a national champion. And yes, you're in the country club. You're there. You are right there in the country club now. You have privileges, but don't think that they're happy that you are. You're going to be the hunted, which I'll tell you is so fun, but it's very stressful. Number 4, fan expectations. For the first time in your life, not only the last 2 years you expect to win games, now you expect to win all of them. It is a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that you will enjoy football so much more. The curse is when you lose games you're not supposed to, and I know that you've only lost like 2 games in 2 years, and you haven't lost since Notre Dame last year in the playoff, but when you do lose that game, it's going to sting so much more. Think of it as you were never allergic to bee stings. Now you are allergic to bee stings. It will all of a sudden swell up like it didn't before, and you're going, what the hell? This used to not bother me. Well, guess what? It's going to bother you now. And Smokey and Craig can attest to this as well. All of us in here have experienced national championships to different levels at different times in our lives. Number 3, constant unfounded coaching rumors. Curt Signetti has already gotten 2 extensions since he signed this deal. He has adamantly signed and put pen to paper in front of the world. Yet, every time a job opens, you will have a huge portion of the national media who just likes to stir the pot, go, well, Indiana and what he's done is great, and this is a signature comeback, and oh my gosh, but golly, School X is it's something different there. It's a different era in college football, and Curt Signetti is the avatar for that. And if people don't want to get on board, to hell with them. But you are going to have to put up with, no, he's not going to Ohio State. No, he's not going to Florida. No, he's not going to Georgia because Kirby Smart finally went to the NFL. No, he's not going there. He's in his 60s. He just did the greatest thing in his entire coaching career. Believe me, he's going to ride it out until there's a statue the size of Saddam Hussein's standing outside that university in Bloomington. Believe you me, this is going to be a headache, but I'm just warning you now. And save this so that when it comes up, like I saw last night, somebody saying he should be the coach of the Steelers. He doesn't want to be the coach of the Steelers. Just let him be. Number 2, Josh Hoover. He's on the way. We here in Big 12 country, very familiar with Josh Hoover. If you're not, he is a stats monster. He is a guy who can carry a team. Now, he has a bit of a turnover problem. He's had a bunch of stats. He's a fantastic passer, bit of a turnover problem, and TCU has only won to a moderate level with him as the starter. Probably not up to the level that you will probably win with Josh Hoover because your infrastructure right now is better than what Sonny Dykes has going. Not to say that Sonny Dykes can't do it. He was really close to where you are right now just a couple years ago. But Josh Hoover wasn't in the right spot for him anymore. He goes in there. If you can improve for Josh Hoover to the same percentage that Fernando Mendoza improved, that's going to be a really good thing. You're going to win a lot of games, and you can run the ball, so that means he's probably not going to turn it over as much, at least a little bit. Bit of a gunslinger, but fun to watch. So any Josh Hoover questions, just send them our way down here, and we're happy to answer them for you. He's a great kid and a great leader, and you'll love him. Next up, the best year of your freaking life. Every meal will taste better. The sun will shine a little brighter. When it's cold and bitter in Bloomington, you'll just snuggle up to the one you love and say, I guess we're hanging out at home today. It will be so much better. Now, again, once the season starts next year, that's over, and you are now a drug addict. I'm sorry, but you are. Championship football is an absolute drug, and it is the best drug of any drug that's ever drugged in the history of drugs. I've never done cocaine. I've never done heroin. You know why? Because my fix was watching Jameis Winston throw a touchdown pass to Kelvin Benjamin, and that held me for about 10 years. Now I need another hit, but hasn't cost me anything because I'm not addicted to smack. So this is a fun drug to be addicted to, but make no mistake, it's a drug. That's going to do it for us. The carnival begins now.
All right. There's no overtime tonight. It'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week. We're still kind of working it out. Appreciate everybody that stayed late with us, including Brandon, you. Enjoyed that. And I've already got a couple of phone calls for us to use tomorrow. Paul Catalina, the wheel.
Steady as she goes. What kind of hat is your favorite? Flat brim, trucker, vintage, etc.
Trucker, no.
What
are you wearing right now, Craig?
I mean, this is an MLB authentic cap.
Yeah.
It's a regular.
That's the one I like.
I mean, I like
that
the
style.
Regular MLB. You can't tell because of the hat. If you ever get us to 100,000 subscribers, so I'll be waiting a while. But if you ever do, I will do a show without the hat on. I promised this like 2 years ago.
People remember that.
So yeah, if we ever do get there, I will do a full blown show. But yeah, I like the like mid to high crowns. So I wear a lot of like MLB, or I like the truckers too. But I can't do the low crowns. My head shape, it's like I'm basically wearing a piece of paper on my head, and it's very uncomfortable.
Blame that on your grandfather.
Yeah.
We got big foreheads. Those the college flappy ones, they don't work for us.
No, like I don't like wearing those.
I can almost get by with it because my head is just round, but
What size head do you have?
I'm a 7.5. So
that's right on the edge.
Yeah. So
I'm a 7 5/8.
Yeah. So I'm right there. I can almost get by with it. Certain hats, like we have to lean the wheel now so it doesn't completely fall over. But
I actually have the smallest head of the
what is yours?
7 3/8.
Yeah.
Man, I got a noggin.
I mostly now don't buy the fitted. I buy the, I like a complete back. I don't necessarily like a snapback, but the snapback technology has gotten better.
If it's fitted, I like the back. That's by itself. But
I like
if I have to do fitted,
stretchy.
yeah.
Like, it's just, I
one
like
size
those.
fits all kind of thing.
Yeah. I like those. So, all right, what's the trivia questions today? Oh, God. That's
Paul, you are.
So, no, I'm worried about this thing. It's.
All right. What is the average number of schools a typical transferring player attends during their career in college? I'm going to say 3.
I think it's probably still 2.
I'll say for right now, I think it's still 2. I think in about a year or 2, it's going to be 3.
Well, after 5 more years with TJ Finley, it'll be up to 4.
Well, do we know? Thank you for doing the research on this, Andrew. Smokey asked about it yesterday. So,
I did. He's such a good young man.
I'm going to still say it's 2. Smokey says it's 3, so we'll have a competition here. Craig and I say 2.
I don't know if I want to use 3 because that's semi-hook 'em. That's a little bit of hook 'em.
That's not the German.
We're never going to get to 100,000 if y'all keep dogging on Texas all the time. All right, we're never going to get there.
Paul, you were right, or was it Craig?
Both of us were.
Yeah, good for you. Thank you.
Why multi-transfers grab headlines? Most players move just once from their original school to a new home. Although the NCAA now allows unlimited transfers, academic credit, loss in roster spots keep the average at 2. Quarterbacks are the biggest outliers, often moving 3+ times to find a starting role. Interestingly, 50% of portal entrants don't find a new team at all.
Yeah, I'd be curious again, like I said yesterday, to hear some stories on guys that with some of the great college football writers out there that go into the portal thinking one thing because Uncle Lee told them that they had money to be made, and then they suddenly have no team to play for. So yeah, I would be curious to know kind of the situations. And look, it's not anybody who can play at like a Georgia Tech that's going to not find a portal home, but there's some guys who had it better than they realize, that's for sure. And yeah, I think in a couple years, the average will be interesting to see how much closer it is to 3 schools per player than it is right now.
Fernando Valenzuela's Mendoza's brother's going to Georgia Tech.
Who?
Fernando Mendoza's brother.
Okay.
It's hard for me to say Fernando and not say Valenzuela.
Well, they needed a quarterback, right? But they lost Philo.
Oh, yeah. No, and Philo, yeah.
So, yeah, with no Philo, I was wondering what they were going to do. And I have confidence whoever they're going to get, they're going to be a good team because they just do a good job there in Atlanta. But, yeah, that's an interesting.
I think it'll be a battle between, I believe it's Adrian Mendoza and somebody they have in-house whose name I cannot remember right now. But they tried. I mean, they had several guys in. Lagway went there. Calandria went there, I believe, or Lagway was considered. Calandria took a visit there. I know that Bo Perbula went there. So, so they went down a lot of different pathways before they found this one. And he committed this morning, so it's probably in the works for a little bit, knowing that Josh Hoover was coming in next year to start for the Hoosiers.
And that's going to be really interesting seeing Josh Hoover leading Indiana next year.
Yeah.
He is a very talented player. He is the opposite of taking care of the football and playing clean. I feel like that's going to be a big departure from Mendoza, unless they can coach that out of him.
If they can coach it out of him, I think also just their ability to run the ball.
Right,
So that'll take 5 interceptions off the mat anyway because they'll be able to get first downs running the ball.
Yeah.
So that'll be less right there. Before the 2025 Indiana Hoosiers, which legendary team was the last 16-0 college football program? I know this one. This is 1894 Yale Bulldogs.
Yep. That was a part of earlier week. That's who it was. And they dominated everybody. In fact, I thought I brought that up on Monday.
Ring the bell.
Or last week.
Thank you.
All right, there we go.
They beat Harvard 15 times and then Brown once in the championship game.
Shut out 13 of 16 teams by 485-13 overall. Retroactively named national champions until Indiana's college championship title 132-year-old benchmark that was snapped or at least tied.
I don't think it's fair to claim a national title in 16-0 when all your opponents were wiped out by typhoid.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long time ago.
Look at that dog. That dog with that looked like, you want a little bit of this?
Yeah, that's some like Norman Rockwell looking stuff.
In 1971, Nebraska was listed, but they were only 13-0, maybe 14. They beat at the end of the year. Nebraska was 1, Oklahoma was 2, and Colorado was 3rd in the Big 8 final AP poll in the same conference, 1, 2, and 3.
Wow.
There you have it.
This 16-0, the greatest season of all time. Yes, better than a movie. No other seasons still top at 28%.
Yeah,
this is a good debate. This is a good argument. Good topic.
I feel like we'd have to get into the weeds a bit on this one.
It's not completely apples to apples.
No, it's not. It's not at all. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a movie, or better than a movie because it's real life. But is it the greatest season ever? I don't know. I'd have to like get down in, like I said, down in the dirt and like compare 95 Nebraska and 2019 LSU and 01 Miami and get into all of that. And then everybody's got different qualifications because inevitably there's going to be some guys like, well, Miami had the most draft picks, and so that means that you were the better team necessarily. So yeah, I think it's very subjective. But that was an incredible run they just went on. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right.
Poll number 2.
I thought that would be I didn't think it would be 72-28.
So pretty clearly, like, people think it is the greatest season of all time, I don't disagree necessarily.
Yeah. Okay, which team is most likely to make it to Super Bowl 60? The Seahawks ran away with this one.
I'm telling you, man, they beat the living hell out of San Francisco. I know the 49ers weren't 100%, but they always just played right through it. Beat them twice in a row, physically annihilated them, and they're red hot. I think they're going to probably be the team that wins it all.
I mean, they look like the best team overall right now, and I think my most enjoyable part of it is just watching Jackson Smith and Jigba blow up into like one of the greatest players in the game. Not that he probably wasn't already, but to get like the recognition for it at the NFL level. I just think like he looks cool. He plays cool. Like everything about this dude's cool, and he's just an awesome football player. And so he's not the lone bright spot. There are many for Seattle, but it's been very neat to see him go do his thing in the NFL. I love watching Jackson Smith and Jigba play.
Yeah, he's so much fun. He's so much fun. I agree with this. They're just playing so well right now, but and 9% for Denver Broncos. We've known Jarrett Stidham since he was a junior at Stephenville High School, and
how much would he have gotten in NIL?
He would look
a large bag.
He would have never.
How big would that truck have been?
Hey, he would have never been here because the school he was previously committed to
was
Texas Tech.
Cody Campbell.
They would not.
Dusty Womble would have.
That had
given him $6 million.
That was always something you kind of heard. They had Chad President committed, who ended up at Tulsa, and man, the way that went down, I didn't like it. I know Stidham was incredible. Bryles said something to us one time. Remember about how he could spin it, like he just when he throws it, it's special.
And then he and Jim Grobe. He's like the only person on earth who didn't like Jim Grobe, but. To each their own.
Yeah,
Jared
was a weird situation.
I think he was a unique guy, but I think he also had a lot of people that we weren't privy to talking to him, telling him, "You ever been to Auburn,
Yeah.
Alabama? You ever been, like that was just a totally different time period. There was no transfer portal. Like he would have commanded millions.
Yeah, he would have gotten a big chunk. All right. There was a super chat, Brandon. I have it. There we go. Bobby B, thank you, 365 Sports, for the Doug McNamee segment. You're welcome. Thank you very much for that, and that will be up on our channel at some point whenever Andrew decides to get to it, and he's got a lot of other stuff on his plate.
Well, I mean, I think I met Doug once or twice before. I know Paul's good friends with him, and you know him really well. I mean, obviously we liked Mac Rhodes, but just things towards the end just didn't work or feel right, and Doug's a breath of fresh air, and I liked a lot of his answers, and I think he's somebody that you can easily get excited for if you're a Baylor fan because he is one of you. And I do think that doesn't always matter, but I think in this case it does matter considering where they are and where they are trying to get to. And I think that his open-mindedness is going to really come in handy. Not guaranteeing that they're going to sell beers at games or anything like that, but I just don't think that it's just like, no, we're doing it this way. Like I like that he's clearly listening rather than just dictating early on. And I think that's going to be super beneficial for them. And I think they've got the right guy for sure in place right now.
Good to have him. Appreciate it. Thanks to Brent Ingram for dropping him by here at the studio. And Brandon, good stuff. Thank you very much. Andrew Valade, thank you. For Garrett Ross, who ran the Zach Gelb show. Don't forget that's tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central. Thank you all, everybody, our sponsors, for being a part of what we do. Tomorrow we got a pretty good lineup. And Paul and Craig, I'm David. This is 365 Sports, and good night.